Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another stream. Let's get right into some painting. I'm going to be painting some wolves. I believe this reference is on the Discord already, at least it should be. Let me just quickly check. Let's see if it is or it isn't. Then we can just directly proceed to some painting. How many references have I finished so far? So I need to do the tiger reference. It's on there. I haven't finished that one. And this one that I'm looking at right now, and the second one that we're going to be doing for the stream. So today's stream is going to be, we're going to be painting these two straight, and we'll paint this one over here by adding our own amount of colors, just create our own little color scheme here. So I did this painting earlier today, which was really cool, really a fun little painting right there. So I completely changed the lighting and the color on this little piece over here, and it ended up looking pretty goddamn sick. My only one problem with this is that, well, I have a couple of problems. One of them is proportion. I would like these folds to be a little more naturally integrated into the piece. That would be nice. However, the colors, I just want to have one standout color, because the yellows themselves are somewhat mid-saturated, the blues as well, somewhat mid-saturated. I want to have something that really breaks away from this. The piece overall is just a little bit safe. I think this is one of those pieces that would strongly benefit from the idea of having just a little bit of those strong color notes somewhere in the middle. I think that'll look really awesome on a piece like this. Perhaps we can experiment with that sometime in the future. Maybe I can bring this piece to more of a finish. I think a grand total of an hour and a half was spent on this piece, but it was pretty good, I think, overall, especially given the constraints. I think quite successful. Some of these strokes as well are somewhat questionable with the way that I've simplified. Maybe could show a little bit more form on the face by just slightly stroking outwards a bit there, giving more form to the muzzle. I think that would be also kind of good. But I don't mind how it looks overall. I think it's quite a successful piece. Alright, but moving on to this one over here. This is quite a straightforward little piece right here. We should be able to do it in the allotted time. Allotted time would be something like an hour, let's say. Do it for 60 minutes. We'll maybe try to get a bunch of best practices in there, because we've been painting wolves for a while. I've been painting wolves for a while right now. So there really is not that much of an excuse to not just jump right into it and see if you can try and accomplish it really quickly. Iris, how's it going?
James, how are you today?
I'm pretty well.
Less than three.
I didn't get to sleep much last night because I've been sleeping really early these days, and with stream yesterday, slept a little bit later than I wanted to. But it's fine, still got up at my usual time. And yeah, head was hurting a little bit, but then after I finished my workout, it felt a lot better. So I'm doing quite okay today. Got some painting out of the way already. I did some wolves earlier. I painted this one for the Instagram, and I did these clouds over here with Maddie. That was fun. I enjoy painting clouds. Always was a bit of an insurmountable thing in the past, but these days, very, very possible. It's easy to break those down. I have your piece open up right here, by the way, so maybe we'll look at it in between pieces. So I'll do my piece, I'll do that first piece, and then we'll come to this, because I think it'll be interesting for a lot of people to watch that. So I'll allow for people to trickle into the stream. I think that'll be a good idea. Okay, so let's not delay on this piece. Let's just get the ball rolling on this one, shall we? Alright, so let's go 3, 2, 1, and we go. My laptop nearly fell over when I hit that hotkey there. Let me just readjust that. Okay, we should be fine. First thing that we do is we just establish that background just really quickly. Background is a light, beautiful blue verging towards something near maybe a mid-blue, not that much green in the sky right there. I don't want to be too hyper-specific with these values because there's obviously a bunch of jitter in there anyway. But just something in there is always good to just have just some notion of what the sky could be. I have a little bit of latency here. Not entirely sure where it's coming from. Could potentially be. Let me just pause the timer for a second. I just want to check if it's from my VLC player because I'm not using Chrome anymore. Let me just check. No, that is indeed not from that. It's just the size of my brush, I think. That's fine. Alright, let me just reopen that. Apologies. We're no longer having Chrome open while we work, and hopefully, at least I was hoping that it will allow me to have just a little bit more of a easier time painting because I don't like painting with latency. And I usually suffer it for stream, just because, you know, it's not that big of a deal, it's just a comfort thing. But yeah, apparently we are still stuck with it. Just do it this way. I'm gonna tank that slideshow, because again I feel like that's eating up some of my processing power. I don't need to have a slideshow there. That's not the image that I wanted to show. Hold on. Let's just put this. Sorry about this. Brief little organizational things that I was hoping I wouldn't have to do on stream, but I roll with the punches sometimes. Can't be too guaranteed of success. Let's put in that wolf piece, shall we? Let's look at this boy over here. Let's put you over here. There you go, it's a good home for you. And let's get that music on. I have a feeling that it'll be even worse with Chrome, but it should be okay. Not the worst thing in the world. Okay. Let's do one thing to fix this really quickly. I'm gonna cut my canvas size really down. And hopefully this is okay to paint with. But one can never be too sure. It really sucks having well, it doesn't I don't want to be ungrateful for what I do have, but having hardware that is a little bit prohibitive for streaming is a problem, but then again, streaming is more of a privilege than a guarantee, so again, I'm not in all rights to complain about it. Okay, well, these brushes seem to be working alright, so we can continue. Let's get that timer running. Alright, let's go. Way too much complaining for the first half of the stream. I don't like that. Just roll with what you got. It's always possible. Always possible. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put that ref really small, because we want to get a good view of it. We don't want to get bogged down on those little itty-bitty details. We don't care too much for them. Shall we put a little bit of that stuff for the greenery? Just a little bit of a note for it. How about that? Let's put a couple of notes for that greenery. Greenery tends to be a little bit more warmer in this reference because we have this beautiful warm sunlight. So we'll edge towards that warmness a little bit. We'll put a couple of lines down. Just a couple of quick little marks. Doesn't have to be specific, but just something there. Just something for us to just look at in the background, and if it needs to be specified at a further point in the piece, we can. But at this point, we can just throw some colors around, and perhaps even a couple of values around. Let's have some fun with it. Have a nice kind of deepish, yellowish orange shadow. A couple of these areas. like that. And that should be perfectly fine for the background. 1 minute 38. And now we jump into just a little bit of brief proportion work. Let's pick something like a mid value like that, just something to stand out against everything in the darkness. And we'll pick a warm value for this. I'm going to draw a few lines. Just going to depict what's going to happen. Now these lines are going to be awfully slow if I do it with that brush, so we'll do it with this brush even though I don't like it. I don't like my lines to be too dead when I make them. I like them to have a little bit of grain on them like that. But unfortunately you see the latency I'm dealing with right now, which is very, very strange because I was not dealing with any of that when I first started painting. But that's alright. We can paint regardless, it's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable. So we'll start with that basic read of the piece, right? So what am I looking for? I'm looking for a horizontal line somewhat in the middle of the canvas. I'm looking for a slight little tapering vertical line somewhere over there. So we can just start with this impression of what we see, right? Just cut through the canvas with some really, really bold strokes. And that's important. I always advocate for this. But when you start a piece, especially a piece from reference, a piece from life, you start with the boldest statement that you can possibly start with. That usually helps out tremendously, because it's really easy to see if things go right or wrong when you do things this way. Much more difficult. We start with little tiny itty bitty lines. It's going to be way, way more difficult for you to evaluate exactly where you go wrong. Because suddenly you're evaluating hyper-specific things when you might be missing things that are much larger. So it makes a lot of sense. Of course, don't be nimble. None of these might be accurate, but be nimble. But the point is that it's so much more effective to do things in this particular fashion because this is what most of the people are going to see. They're never going to see the tiny details, or they're never going to want to see it unless you kind of solve these big, big issues. So you see the distance at which I'm painting at right now. It's even further for me IRL because I use a tablet and I sit quite far away from my desk. But we're going to solve these really big things. Life Hacks by Sam. How's it going, man? Good to see you. Hopefully you're having a good day. We're doing a quick little wolf painting. I'll be doing this in about an hour. But good for you to join us, or it's so lovely for you to join us. For you? For us? For me? English is my second language, so just whatever version of that sentence is the least douchiest, that's the one that I hope you have chosen to interpret. But how's it going? Good to see you. How was your stream? What were you working on? I'm assuming you're a creative streamer. If you'd like to post any work to my community, you're more than welcome to. So welcome guys, my name is Indian Abroad, aka James. I am a study streamer. I do a variety of painting throughout my day, but when I do my studying, I try to do it on stream. Hopefully with a lot of commentary to benefit people that are curious about the way that I achieve certain looks on my work. I'm no expert in anything, nor will I be for a very long time, but I do have a certain way with words. So hopefully I'll be able to disseminate exactly what I do, what's involved in making certain images the way they are, and come away from the stream with something quite positive and hopefully beneficial. But it's good to see you. DT, good to see you. Laura P. Lonan, welcome. How's your stream? Let me know how you are. So just a couple of markings for the eyes. The eyes are going to be adjusted just a little bit, but it doesn't stop us from just making our best guess at this point, using a negative shape. Disintegrate, welcome. Thanks for shouting out life hacks. Do let me know what you're working on though. Always curious. Always something I can learn and pick up. So many people I've been meeting these days. They're very exciting. So we don't really need all that much more than what we just did. Like we are well on our way to, completing this piece. There are a couple of things that I want to slightly adjust before I move forward. For instance, I kind of want to bring this line right here down for the muzzle. Give myself a little bit more room to work with over there. But beyond that, I think everything is just coming quite smoothly on the piece. I think we're gonna get a nice little read. So I'm gonna take it to paint right now. I don't do line art per se. I do block-ins. So block-ins is just kind of contain certain ideas, contain certain shapes. I'm drawing a much more broader picture than you would see with a line art. And I prefer to work this way. I don't like to spend too much time in line, and line doesn't tend to feature in any of my work. So I do try to just speed run through the lines, but you don't have to. But everybody has their own way of measuring. Good to see you, Sam. How was your stream? Let me know how everything went. Are you by chance somebody that I already know that changed their name? Or is this your first time in here? Or have I just forgotten? Have you always been here and I've been hallucinating your lack of presence? Alright, so we have all of this happening right here. So I want to separate the wolves from the background, because the background is it's crazy blue. The wolves are not, they're quite warm. I just want to slightly apply a layer of paint underneath all of this. It doesn't have to be an exceptionally strong amount of paint, but it just has to be something to separate, because again, I want that fundamental separation to happen, and I can do this in just about any way. I can do this with an airbrush, I can do it with a, with a graphite brush. I'll do it with an airbrush right now because I can't use my usual brush for this, because it lags my computer too much. But we'll start here, and honestly, any warm color will do. It doesn't necessarily matter, because right now we're thinking about temperature more than anything else. I just want this to read temperature-wise warmer than the background. If that doesn't make any sense to you, by the way, it's not the worst thing in the world, because temperature is a little bit of a it's not an easy thing to kind of figure out, but once you do, you'll realize the idea. And if you are not used to the idea of temperature, what temperature means is that it's just relative warmness and coolness on a piece. So warms meaning tending towards the yellows and the reds, cools meaning going towards the purples and the blues. So what we kind of figure out in all of our pieces is that we don't necessarily have to match colors perfectly at all on any of our work. What's more sufficient to do in most of our work is just to kind of match temperature. Meaning you match just roughly whereabouts that lies in relation to everything else. And that seems to be sufficient for so many pieces. You don't need to do anything more than that. Just match where it generally lies, and that's the your entirety of your work right there. Because I don't paint any of my pieces with exact colors, unless that's exactly what I'm searching for. But I don't try to go for exact colors at all. My pieces end up looking fine. You can really get away with a lot. I haven't been here in a while, but it's great to see you again. Stream is great as always. Excellent. Would you like to post what you're working on? So we're gonna make some really big decisions on color in this piece, because the entire wolf is quite homogeneous. So everything is uniformly warm. So I want to kind of introduce a bit of coolness into this piece. And since we have this lovely diffuse sky, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce coolness in the shadows. Because that's how diffuse light works, right? The origin of color on a piece comes from so many different places. But one of the places that it indeed does come from is from diffused light. So diffuse source is, as you might think, it's not a direct source. It happens all around the piece, right? All these different locations. So the sky is a perfect classic example of a diffuse source, because the sky is all around us. It's not by itself a ridiculously strong source. But in the shadows is where it can play. In the shadows is where so much of its effect can be seen. Not so much in the lights. Because in the lights, the sun predominates. The primary light source will predominate. However, in the shadows is where the diffuse light can always play. Which is why you have this warm light, cool shadow idea. It's from diffused light. That idea usually comes out. If we're talking about like these grosser ideas, also we can just fill the shape, by the way. Since we've taken the time to simplify, we can just fill the shape. There's nothing stopping us from doing this. There's no rule. And there's no rule over there, because we're trying to make an effective picture, right? So there's no rule saying, oh, that's a mouth, that's a nose. Really, at least from when you're with me right now and you're seeing the abstraction from this level, really there's no difference between the nose and the mouth shape. It's just one strange looking shape. So why not just paint it as such, right? We don't owe it to anybody to paint certain things certain ways. Paint as we see it. Shay, how's it going? Good to see you. How was TwitchCon? I think I managed to snag a couple of really good pictures of you and Sax from Sax's Instagram, so you can expect a piece at some point when I get around to doing it. I got so many pending. But yeah, you have evaded me for far too long, and now finally I have you. So much fun. Good to hear. Hopefully you had a really good time and that you're back home safely. I got to meet Bonnie. I know. I saw the pictures, and she said you were lovely. It's awesome. I don't know if I'll ever go to a TwitchCon at any point in my life, but it would probably be fun. I'll certainly enjoy it. At a certain point, I'm gonna have to realize that I can't get by putting these darks in. But yeah, Sam, if you want to post any work, I know I keep saying this like a broken record, but I do want to promote people if I can, if given the opportunity. So when I just post to social media as well, that's fine. This is a way of giving back, you know. So the primary star of this piece is going to be this beautiful orange, this rich orange color right here. Taking care of hubby, no problem. Whenever you're ready. So we'll introduce it right now. I'm a strong believer right now, at least these days, in terms of efficiency, because it's always what I think about when I paint. It's efficiency. What is the best practice? What can you do to really push a piece home in the smallest amount of time? And something that I'm really thinking about these days is that if something is going to feature into your piece, if something's going to be a major player in the piece, you have to put it in early. You have to put it in really early, and I mean really early. I'm talking like first 10 minutes, you got to put that major player down there. I'm a bit slow on this particular piece, but in general, put those major players in as early as you can. So right now, I'm not really after trying to make anything look decent, right? I'm not really after trying to get that superficial, oh, immediate, I have clean line art, I have clean this, clean that. There's really a benefit. There's really a benefit. A piece should start like, if I could paint like a beautiful piece in an hour, if I could paint anything in an hour, and have it look like a piece of shit till like minute 59, I would take that deal any day of the week. But that's just better. It's just better in general. Better for you, it's better for the people that are paying for your work, if at all there are any. Speed is important. Really important. Not just what the speed it does for you, but it's what the speed implies, right? Speed implies expertise, understanding, like effective processing, intentionalness. A bunch of things. Alright, so get this color in certain areas. Just trying to figure out what my palette's going to be, so I'm doing a bunch of farting around, because I don't exactly know. I don't want to follow the reference exactly, so just trying to figure out things. What's going to go and feature in these various areas, but I think I'm slowly but surely coming up on what I actually want on the piece, which is good. And also realize that you only have to solve it for a few areas in the piece. You don't have to solve it for most areas. Because when you paint, there's so many things that are similar, which really save your life, really saves your shit, because when you figure out a certain value or a certain color in a particular area, undoubtedly and invariably, that color is going to be repeated, that value is going to be repeated in a few areas, which means it's almost like playing a game of Minesweeper, where once you find like an area that's good, it like opens up a big area. Thanks for the follow, Kawai. So for example, if I solve the light underneath the eye over here, I can put a light right there for on top of the eye, because those values are very similar. Are they super similar? Well, no. But I can correct for that later. Because at this stage, what you want to do is you want to just paint the simple notions, simple ideas right now. You want to give yourself the best possible chance of completing the piece. And one of those primary important practices when you want to paint quicker, paint more effectively, is the idea that you want to cover the canvas with as much effective paint as you can, as soon as you can. And why do you want to do that? It's because it's so much easier to make a decision when you have everything in some amount of relative context. What that means is that if you had to choose a value, and I said, okay, choose that dark value, what's the likelihood you actually choose that value? The correct value, that is. What's the likelihood? Most of the time, it's not very high, right? You might choose something relatively in the ballpark, but the exact value, that's a bit too much to ask for. So why would you ask that of yourself, right? When you're choosing values for your own piece, why would you require that of yourself? So get in the ballpark, and then when everything is next to each other, it is so much easier for you as an artist to say, all right, well, you know, comparatively, in the context that I currently have, that's too dark. As opposed to, I just put this dark down, and I have nothing to compare it to, but I'm going to say it's wrong. It's difficult. It's a hard thing to say. In fact, it's an inefficient thing to do as well. So definitely have a strong amount of confidence when you work. That's essential, right? Have a strong amount of confidence. Say, I'm going to make an assumption, I'm going to make a guess in a particular area, and I say my guess is correct. And you be heavily critical of that guess later on. Later on in your work, you be critical about it. Also, these lines have to go at some point. I was ignoring them completely when I was working. Let's just do it this way, shall we? We'll just cut the opacity and bring everything on one layer. I don't like painting on multiple layers. Everything's on one layer now, we're good. Getting caught up in my analogies right there. But that's the idea. So when things are in context, it is so much easier to make decisions on a canvas. It is way easier to make decisions. And again, to iterate why that's the case, it's because of the fact, again, that have you ever painted anything wherein you have to readjust a value? This is very common in things like occlusion shadows or occlusion values, where you paint a dark in for the corner of the eye, you paint a dark in for a contact shadow, and then suddenly you find yourself 5 or 10 minutes later readjusting that value because suddenly it's not dark enough or it's too dark. Why is that? That's because you establish something in context, and that something completely disrupts your idea of what dark really is. It's a very common thing to happen. It is an inevitable thing to happen on the canvas. The context will change, right? Especially if you paint from imagination, or you don't have a good amount of reference, which is often the case. You don't really know. You don't really know what the piece is going to end up looking like. So you're going to be nimble in that respect. But the only way you can be nimble and be effective is the idea that you always have that best practice of just having everything on the canvas and then making a decision. Always, as soon as possible, do that. Just a good idea. Of course, everybody has their own workflow, but what I found to be almost universally is a good idea in general. Just put that idea down. Like, one of the most common beginner mistakes is to just island a bunch of stuff. Right, so I create a bunch of beginners all the time. And that's one of the primary things that I see is the issue. That they island stuff, like they'll paint just an eye, or just a nose, or just a face even. And they leave the rest of the piece completely empty, and then they have to constantly keep second guessing themselves. So like, is this value right? This doesn't look good, doesn't look good, doesn't look good. Honestly, half the time it looks great. They're doing a really good job. It's just that the piece itself is lessened by the fact that you haven't completed everything else, so the entire piece suffers because of the incompletion. Suddenly, like, it does look so much more unfinished because while your head's perfectly rendered and you could stop, you're missing a hand, or you're missing a shirt, or you're missing values in the neck. That makes everything look worse. Like, it's a big concern. So things like that are important, so establish the context as soon as possible. It's always a good idea. Let's bring that highlight to something more of a warm. I don't like how liney that is. A bit too liney for me. I don't want to draw attention that much, so we'll do it like this. We'll do it a bit more broken apart. I like that better. It's a stand-up part of the piece, right? I don't want to go crazy with that. And also, while I'm here with this brush, I'm just going to do a couple of things for proportion. I've been using different workflows lately. This is a bit too doggy-like. Slightly cut that stroke down. It's a bit too excessive, I got ahead of myself. There's a little bit of a divot there on wolves, but it's not that much. That's fine. Look at him, he's so cute. Okay. Also, one of the big things that I want to establish really quickly, besides the eyes are really important, of course, but one of the big things for wolves is this beautiful marking that they have. Not just a marking, but a divot in their skulls. Right around here. It almost gives you like a notion of like how their bone structures, because this right now is the top of the clavicle. I'm sorry, the top of the zygomatic cheekbone. Powerful. There we go. Quickly establishing it. Make sure you put the foam shadows and stuff. No problem, DT. I'll see you in a bit, buddy. A bit of a note should be made in this piece is that when I put a shadow down, I should be thinking about cooling that shadow. Because again, I'm slightly altering the palette in this piece. I don't like everything being so warm, so I'm going to slightly shift that palette to more of a cool in certain areas. So in that respect, I'm going to be just a little bit concerned about certain decisions that I make. We should be okay for the most part. Also want to keep things nice and bright here. I haven't truly established what's super bright on this piece just yet. And I might choose to amp this in a little bit of a different fashion than you usually see me do on the stream, which might be cool to watch, so we'll do it in a different way. Right now my values are somewhat, I mean they're there in a decent way, but we can do something to make them even cooler. Alright, let's do a bit of movie magic. So I see a bit of a gray there, but I'm not going to paint a gray there, I'm going to paint a light green. Because why not, right? You can optically mix a bit of a gray because it's so warm against the green. Optical mixing is a really interesting subject that can really give a piece of a really unique kind of look. The idea is that when you put complementary colors next to each other, they tend to cancel out when you look at the piece from a long distance away. And it can be a really cool effect. So many artists that I see on Instagram actually use this, and now that I know what it is, I'm seeing it pop up more and more in so much work. Like Ronja, for example, I was looking at his work yesterday, and he had a very unique background pattern of these purples against these almost decent greens in the background. I was wondering why he was doing that. Then I realized for a second that, wait a second, if I zoom out, that's gray, and that's why you can get away with it. So really really unique and really fun stuff. I like seeing that. It always like encourages me as well because of the fact that I look at so many different sources in my work. Also, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to put there. How about that? I look at so many different sources while I work, while I try to learn. And sometimes I'm always worried that I'm going too wide. I'm glad that all these things come back. I see them in so much active work by like legends in the industry. Very reassuring. Okay, so we have this much established for the white wolf. So one of the best things about painting things that are similar in similar context is that you can just sample stuff off of what you already painted. So I have a light for the eyes right over there. So it's just a matter of just getting that value, just picking it up from there, and just painting it over here. So my work is so much quicker right now. We have a little bit of a proportional issue right there that needs to be solved. Let's just solve it really quickly, right? So we're just gonna do it really nonchalantly, like that. Same level as what? Same level as bottom of the nose, goes higher, and about that distance away. So we went from here to here. Alright, so we'll grab the worm right there, we'll put the worm right here. So right now, the job on us is so much more easier because we have everything we need, really. We have everything that we really need to finish this piece on the right-hand side, so it's just a question of simply transplanting certain values, and that's the benefit. So while it is sometimes daunting drawing multiple things at the same time, this is the one saving grace in that idea, which is you can reuse so many things that you have. I'm going to bring in more of a green on this side, just because I feel like there's a reflected light somewhere there, and because I see a little bit of the green in the reference. And that's just something they can do stylistically, right? One of those fun little stylistic choices. When you see a value, when you see a temperature, just amp it, just completely amp that temperature. Really double and triple down on the temperature. It can be certainly something you can use for a style. And there's so many artists out there right now that have styles that are based on that. Like Yang Jin Chung, for example, on Instagram. If you guys don't recognize the name, she does almost like chromatic aberration paintings. And it's phenomenal to watch. It's really, really cool stuff. And she banks on this concept of when she sees a temperature change, she just doubles down on it. She goes crazy with it. That's why her work really works, because that's why when you see her work, you think realism, you don't think stylization, or you don't think it's like a vectorized art. The reason that you think that is because of the fact that she's still heavily in that fundamental region. So she's still heavily thinking about fundamentals. So even when she has like purples and blues and stuff on her face, you don't think to yourself, that looks kind of unreal. You think, oh, that's so beautiful, what a crazy depiction of reality. So you think depiction of reality, you don't think unreal. Which is an interesting thing to consider as well. A little bit of a weird ear up there. I'm just gonna slightly just evoke that in there. We'll handle it in a little bit of time. I'm just checking this eye coordination. I'll probably be fiddling with it just a little bit more. In a couple of moments, we should be somewhere in there, in the ballpark. So we're about to do that thing that I talked about earlier. Not just yet, but in a couple of seconds. I have some time to just apply a little bit of stroke here, just because I want some raw material. Because I'm going to do a level shift and a bit of masking, just to kind of amp the lighting in the piece, because I feel like it needs a bit of lighting amplification in certain areas. So just before I do that, I'm going to quickly just add in some interesting marks, just so I have some raw material, because you can't solve a piece on layer modification, it's just not possible. You have to do a bunch of painting for it to even look slightly good, and even more painting for it to look very good. We're just doing this from the beginning. Let's apply some of these bits of information real quick. Also, wolves are super layered as well, so if you can spot the layers, it's going to make the piece so much better. Like right now, if I can show you guys, it's like this. And you got a big little tufty layer right over there, and you have another one it's simplified like this, because that's the front of the wolf. You see that drawing on the bottom left? You can see a little bit of that tuftiness, that layered tuftiness, which is just, it looks fantastic. This looks really, really cool. Especially when you get that right. Artists like Aaron Blaze, for example, who are experts in drawing wolves, they'll really double down on this, like, on the sections of the wolf's body, especially in animation. Like, look at the manes in the Lion King, for example. They're just so layered. So beautifully, beautifully layered. And there's a reason why that looks correct. Not just looks good, but looks correct, because that's exactly how it is in real life. So you see in my painting, I'm actually doubling down as well myself, trying to get these layered kind of effects going into the piece. And we're 26 minutes in, and we have a pretty strong read already. I'm going to do a couple of things before we transition into the idea of doing the layers. So the first thing is I have to fix this nose over here. So basically this little mouth, I draw a plumb line, which is an imaginary line. I draw it horizontally this way, and I can find the real corner of that nose easily enough. Just paint through that. I want to find that side of the face right there. I flip quite regularly, by the way. I do apologize if it's disorienting, but it does help. And I'm the kind of person that spends a lot of time on, well, I don't spend a lot of time on a piece, but I don't get up. I usually finish a piece, then get up whenever I work. So having fresh eyes is fairly important for me to have. So it's a habit that I've picked up. I'm gonna do a slight little crop like that, because again, just personal choice, but I don't ever like drawing things that I can't see on the reference, because most of the time I'm not studying construction when I do these kind of wolf pieces, or when I do paintings like this on stream especially. It's mostly studying process and rendering, surface texture and stuff like that, so I don't want to think too much about trying to invent a new proportion, unless the piece is specifically to do that. So I'll think about form insofar as if I'm changing the lighting, I think it's important, but beyond that you won't see me do too many things that are off reference. At least on the stream, that is. So we have some good solid reads going on there. So I'm going to do just one last thing, which is I want to put the eyes in for the main dog. And then they can just jump into trying to amp the lights, which is going to be really fun. I'm going to just take this piece to a slightly higher level than it already was. So let's put that in. So these eyes are very, very hard. They're super hard. But when I say hard, I mean the edge of the eyes are hard. So it's a hard edge. So we don't paint this with a soft, super soft brush like we've been doing. This is very distinct the way the eye is against the rest of the body. And we want to maintain that distinctness. And I use maintain very specifically, that word maintain, because that comes from your error checking of realism, from your draw mix paint method. Rule number 4 right there, maintain the abstraction. Always maintain abstraction. What that generally means is the idea that if you see something that is a pattern, you paint it as a pattern. You see something that's random, you paint it random. You don't apply patterns where they non-exist. You don't apply hard when softs exist. You don't make that level of abstraction, because that kills the realism. You can do it to a certain extent for a lot of things, but for others, you can't really get that far. Vic, how's it going, dude? Were you at TwitchCon? I know Kate was. Hopefully she did well when she was in the D. Nicola booth. Speaking of which, I got to follow up on her art book. Does it seem like I'm a con gunner? I don't know, man. You think I make assumptions about what you do and what you don't do? I barely know what I'm doing. I don't even know what I had for breakfast this morning. I barely leave my house. I'm with you there, though. Because I finally have a gym in my own place. So I got legitimately 0 reasons to leave the house these days. You had some eggs? I did have some eggs, that's true. I had 2 eggs. Scrambled. Beastie, how's it going, man? Good to see you. So we put those eyes in. I'm just gonna keep like a notion of the eyes. I don't want to like fully paint them at all at this point, because again, I'm gonna be dramatically changing the lighting on this piece. And as a last little footnote here, let's toss in that juicy highlight. And then we can just start to do some really heavy digital cheating. So right now this is well on its way for completion, right? So we got a lot of good reads. We're 30 minutes in, we have the form, we have everything. It's just a matter of bringing this piece to a conclusion, right? But we're going to do a couple of things that are exciting, a couple of changes that we don't usually do in our studies, but it might be fun regardless. So this I'm going to also just put in these teeth really quickly, these big old woofer canines. And I don't need to paint any of this exactly, by the way. I just have to give a notion as to where they are. But exact painting, that's not what we do on the stream. We paint nice and dirty, because nice and dirty is all we need to paint, really. And if I can get away with something, I'm going to get away with it. Okay, let's put that tongue in, the buffer tongue. Beautiful. I'd say egg whites, but you're not that prudish on lifting diet, and that shit's expensive. Egg whites? Who the fuck egg whites? Are you kidding me? What am I, Gwyneth Paltrow? Fuck that. Go yellow or go home. Doing great, bro. How you been? Been good, dude. Been good. One of my pieces on Instagram did so fucking well yesterday. I have no idea why. I don't particularly care, but it is nice. It is nice. It's a dangerous thing, by the way. If you guys are like me, you can take rejection, you can take failure really, really easily. Like, I got no issue with failure. I got zero issues because this has happened enough times that I'm desensitized to it. But what's really dangerous about life when you have that kind of ideology is victory. Because when you get victory, when you get triumph in any order, it opens you up, makes you vulnerable. That shit's doubly, triply worse. Right? When you start to believe that things can be good and then things aren't good, it's not a good feeling right there. Thankfully, I've been through that little gauntlet enough times that I know what it's like. So I'm just sitting pretty right now. Speaking of Gwyneth Paltrow, my goodness, her products. Holy shit. I thought it was bad a few months ago or a few years ago, but it's really bad right now. Okay, so a couple of issues. We have this heavily, unbelievably high contrast area of blue against warm over here. It's not just light against dark, but it's warm against cool. So we want to neutralize this. So we're gonna drop some mad desaturation bombs in the middle. So we really want to tone this down. These things over here need to just die really quickly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do it like this. So I want it to go warmer and I want it to go somewhere towards a mid-tone. And I don't want it to be nearly as much saturation. The answer is this value over here. And indeed it seems to work, right? So we big brain that really quickly. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do to kind of elevate this piece, okay? So it goes like this. The first thing that we're gonna do is hit tab because I need to open up my windows. And because I usually paint with like nothing on my screen sometimes, just my brushes and my color selector. So here's what we're gonna do. We are going to lower the overall amount of light in this piece, okay? So we'll hit that color adjustment curve really quickly. And I'm gonna just dip this piece. That's saturation, that's not lightness. Here we go. So we go ba-bam, right? We go bam. And then suddenly everything's dark. The dark far future right there. I'm gonna mask that out as well. And here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start revealing areas, okay? Just a quick little thing in this piece. And I'm gonna start revealing areas of light. So let's say I'm gonna reveal this little buffer right here. I can even redefine the actual light and direction here if I wanted to, but I'll stick roughly close to the reference. So this is going to give me just a ridiculous amount of separation, and really separation is something that you can bank a painting on, right? The majority of realistic painting done in the 17th and 18th century were banking on this idea that oh shit, I got separation of light and dark, and that's what I'm going to bank my painting on. That's what they wanted to do, and that's what they did. So you look at your old paintings all the way up to 1900s, right? All the way up to the death of Sargent. You got realistic painters just banking on the idea of like, oh my goodness, I am going to make a painting with a ridiculous amount of separation. And when I say separation, I mean separation of light and dark. So there are multiple ways of coming to a good conclusion, but you need to have these strong decisions on paintings to make them like really stand out, because now it looks like more of a painting, right? Because before, like this was before, everything's like, it's way too like stencily, it's way too like, okay, I just colored into the lines or something. There's no major decision that happens there. That's a problem, because you want to commit to something when you paint, right? What is your painting about? And what is the painting about? Like, what are you achieving? What's the real standout feature of the piece? And pieces have standout features. Styles have standout features, right? The whole style of realism is based on value. It's based on, like I said before, separation of light and dark. That's what the realism is based on. Right? And there are other styles that don't have that at all, right? For example, look at Impressionism, for example, or look at Postmodernism, for example. They have completely different basis on what their entire work is based on over there. They're completely different primary prerogatives with their work. Atti, is that you over there? How's it going? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. So I need to do a couple of things to unify. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just unify the sky really quickly, because the sky can't be that dark, because we have a primary light source in the sky, so we gotta quickly bring that back. Forgive the sounds of India in the background, by the way. I do apologize, but not much I can do. It will unify slightly. The amount that we want to unify, I'm not entirely sure. That's fine. We can do it that way. I'd even tend to tone that down if I wanted to. Maybe we'll tone it down ever so slightly. And I get to make these decisions as well because I have the power of my brush strokes right now behind me. I can start doing stuff like this. And we'll have a slight gradient from the right to the left, maybe. That would be kind of cool. And let's just really amp the light on the right hand side. That should be all we need to do. And then suddenly what we're left with is a much stronger piece. Because we have all these things that we didn't have before coming into the fray, really giving us so much better reads in these areas that we didn't have. We have this dynamic of beautiful, beautiful value all over the place, which is good. We want that. We want that in our pieces. I think I'm gonna just dive into the separation right there. We can do it this way. I like this a lot better than what was already there. Okay. What about you, little buddy there? I'm gonna give you a bit more towards the right, most likely. And we'll give you a little bit of light right there. And of course, this little cheek puffs out. It gets light from the left-hand side, sorry, right-hand side. And there we go, that's all we need to do. Shall we do one more thing? So we're gonna do the same thing that we just did, but we'll do the opposite, shall we? Really just bring this piece home. Because what's my lightest light right now? It's actually pretty light, but maybe you can go a little bit heavier with it, right? Just a quick little adjustment. So we'll just do just a slight little adjustment to where it's the light. We'll bring it more into the light like that. Suddenly everything is lighter. But we don't care. We don't really want everything to be lighter. Just select areas. So we'll do it this way. We'll do the exact same thing. I'm going to just quickly select everything on my piece and get rid of it. And now we get to just play around with just selectively showing the audience exactly where we want them to look. We can do a little bit of this. To get a much more volumetric look to the piece. Wilfs? Wilfs? Wolves are... wait, what? Don't expand that. That's what my brother used to call them when he was little. Oh, goodness. Well, I have some news about your brother, Erica. Everything's fine. I like how the set is coming out. Also, the painting in the corner is so beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope you've been well, Athias. Did you see Nash's recent wolf pics? I did, actually, on his Instagram. I'm sorry, not his Instagram, on his Discord. I should get in on that really quickly. But that's it for our little adventure, by the way. That's it for our adventure in really trying to bring this piece into a little bit more of an exciting lighting situation. Because things were a little bit flat-lit, and now look at what we left with. That was like, I mean, it was technically 5 minutes of work, but it was 10 because of explanation. But hey, went out pretty good. Also, before I do that, before I commit to that little change, I forgot one little thing, which is the teeth. Teeth need to go a little bit lighter as well. There you go. So cute right now. My goodness, look at you. You beautiful, beautiful beast. Kyle Camo with a raid. Hell yeah, Kyle, get in here. Show me your squash. How'd that piece go, Kyle? Follow Kyle, does study streams as well. He's a good dude, I appreciate him. Okay, we're gonna have to have some slight fidelity on this piece over here. So let's introduce some secondary colors, shall we? Some slight little secondaries here. So we have the opportunity to just jump in and add a little bit more saturation in certain areas, which we should do, right? So let's add in some reds near the eyes, right over there. You see that slight little red? Let's amp it up. A little bit of red right there. I can also choose to have maybe an orangish red right there as well. But that's a nice little color right there. And we'll separate that out over here in the middle. Add a bit more towards the center. Just add a bit more of a life of the wolf right over there. And in the middle we can throw in some slight little indications of lights on either side. So the one issue with doing things like this is that the brushes become a little bit too brush-y, in the sense that they look like direct strokes and not like they belong to the piece, which is definitely a problem. And that's resolved by just doing a couple more strokes to add and remove from what he just did. So one of the biggest solutions to trying to make things not look like you did it with a bunch of digital brushes is that you make a stroke and you make a reverse stroke, and the second stroke should be an eraser, right? So you erase part of what you just did with the same brush, and that tends to prevent it from looking too marker-like or too stamped. Went well? Hell yeah. Post a piece, man. Post your work. We see that stuff. But he's looking awfully pretty right now. We're quite a big fan. This workflow is just really fun because it's not as demanding on me personally at the very beginning of the piece. I don't think that strongly about my value separation because I'm always thinking about it. But the fact that I know that I'll be doing what I just did, it takes a lot of the pressure off. Which is just fun for me as an artist because then I get to play with shape more. I get to focus on stuff. Because when you paint something for this kind of time, you gotta think strongly about a whole bunch of things really quickly and try to organize them in a in an appreciable fashion. So it's sometimes difficult to do that quick enough. So now that we have this area in shadow over here, I can light these areas over here in slight amounts of blue light, which is fantastic news. It's really good stuff. Put a little bit of blue on the piece, like that. It will fit eventually. What's the local value right now? Desat blue, so this is lighter. So this was the local. So this is lighter, and this is more blue. So more blue and lighter. We'll try that value on. Looks okay. A bit too blue, I think. I don't want to create too much diversity. There we go. See? We get a lovely blue value, and suddenly we have another color on the piece. Just like that. Easy enough. Yeah, go check out Kyle's link, would you? I can't show it on the stream, I don't think, because I don't have my Chrome open, but look his link. Actually, let me do something really quickly. Let me pause my timer. Let me open up my dashboard, because I have Chrome open up on the others. I haven't been really active on the internet. Life happened. How was university going? I'm actually back home right now because I'm taking a sabbatical from university just to work on art portfolios and stuff for hopefully art school. Kyle, do me a favor, man. Post that again, would you? I want to see. There you go. Now, what is this website? ibb.co? You're trying to dox me? Looks like my bank's empty. Hell yeah, dude. Good job. Looks solid. Yeah, definitely a good job. I am a fan. Alright, I'm gonna keep you right here. Alright. Keep painting? Good stuff. So what's the logic on this blue light? Logic on the blue light is if I'm looking at the top right, I become blue. If I'm not, I become local color. That's the logic. Really simple stuff. But suddenly I get to add so many more colors to my piece, man. That's the fun part. That's the fun part of doing it. Oh, by redefining light source like that. You get to do wacky things like that. Let's throw some more red over here. I'm gonna deeply, somewhat red in the shadows as well. Just jump in a bit of this saturated area like that. Ninja Mate, how's it going, dude? Good to see you. How's the day been treating you? I'm drawing these wolves over here. Same old at this point. You know the story. But every time I do these, I get a little bit better, and I try out something a bit more ambitious. Ooh, listen, you're not dark enough, so you gotta go dark, right? Thank you. It's a bit too dark, looks almost markery. You gotta be careful, gotta balance the elements in the piece. That's healthy enough. You know what we can do here? Why am I focusing on an area that's not that important? So hit it with a bit of defocus, man. Just defocus that. Why am I stressing on an area that is not as important? So there's a bit of an art to this. There's a bit of an art to this. Let me tell you the secret. Don't commit to something completely. That's the secret over there. Because when you make a heavy-handed digital decision like that, it sticks out like a sore thumb. So what you do is you paint over it. You paint over it, right? And suddenly people don't know. They don't know what you just did, and nobody has to know. It can be our little secret. But that's a defocused area right now. But it's still defocused, but you can't tell. That's the fun part. These light areas over here on the bottom, they can be painted straight, right? They can be just hard little bristles right there, but they don't need to be painted like that. Mainly because, again, they're not area of focus, so what's the point in doing specific strokes right there if I'm not gonna... No, I don't want people to look there, right? It's a bit of a problem right there if I do specific strokes. So why not just, again, use the power of our little tools here to just simplify that. Make it a little bit less specific. That saturation is a bit bothersome. There we go. Little marks right there. Keep things nice and interesting. So this bristle brush, not a bristle brush, I'm sorry, this pastel brush has a nice little texture to it, which is good because it kind of acts as a great little analog, a great little placeholder for fur texture, because it doesn't have to be fur texture particularly. If you paint traditionally, or if you study anybody that paints traditionally, that's me, second category, you realize that a lot of the times you don't need anything but noise, just some amount of activity when you do certain strokes. You don't need to paint anything specifically if you know what you're doing. The idea is that as long as there's some amount of disturbance in a certain fashion with certain values, and with a certain edge type, things will look the way they need to. Like naturally they will look the way they need to. So there's no such thing as like, this is my skin texture brush, this is my fur texture brush, this is my metal texture brush. Most of the time, if not all the time, if you know what you're doing, and you manage your piece well, you manage your edges well in your piece, you don't have to choose anything really different in any of those cases. You can really get by on what you have. It's very possible. That's what happens in oil painting, right? I mean, you think they have an oil painting brush particularly? No, they use the same fucking brush for everything. Like arguably they can switch out the brush to have different like dry brush and all these other different textures, sure, but a lot of the alla prima painters, they don't do that. They don't do any of that. They straight up will say, you know what, I don't give a shit about what texture this is, I'm gonna abstract it regardless. And they do, it's possible. And I'm infatuated with it. Completely smitten with that idea. Because it's just it's just something impressive about it, right? Something really impressive about the idea that somebody's not struggling like we are. Like, isn't that why, like that's really why I'm doing all these tests and efficiencies, because I really am impressed by people that can do that. I'm so impressed by that. Impressed by Sargent, impressed by Duran. These people that are, you know, long since dead for 100 years, but they've been able to do portraits so much more effectively than us with all our digital tools. I mean, there's something to that, something there that we need to analyze and figure out. It's worth the time to figure out. At least for me personally, it's really worth the time. Because to me, it's not just speed secondary, but it's the efficiency, right? It's the intentionalness. That's what really matters. That's what really is what I'm searching for, always. And we can get that. Get that by studying those people. Information is there, we just gotta figure it out. And we will. 48 minutes, man. We already have such a beautiful array of stuff on this piece. And just, it's interesting to look at. I like looking at it. So I'm happy about that. I mean, there's a litany of things that I would change, but definitely for the time frame for what we're doing here, pretty good. So I want to deepen up the saturation. Like I said, I want to have a strong statement when it comes to these colors over here. So I'm going to really just strengthen them up with a bit of jitter right there. A bit of, oh my god, why is he using that color? That kind of color right there. Just a little bit of that. Because you've got to have some amount of worry and chaos in the piece. Just a little bit of that. So I'll use this brush for that. This brush has a mild amount of jitter on it. This is fun to use. Let me just quickly adjust that value. So I want to get a slightly lighter value that goes on the side of the nose right over there. Let's just put that in right over there, shall we? A bit more red, I feel like. So again, that's a question of temperature. I was talking to Kyle on his stream about temperature yesterday. I was half asleep. I don't know if I made any sense, but I did a stream yesterday about that subject. It's a great subject to talk about, temperature, because it can save somebody. It can really save somebody's life. Especially if you struggle with color, or you think you struggle with color. Like, thinking about temperature is just so much superior than thinking about straight color. Because like I said, like you can make any piece look decent if you just double down on temperature. The time is for an hour at TS, or one hour, and the immediate answer to that, the response to that should be, Well, Indian, James, you know, we're on a first name basis right now. If it's a 1 hour piece, why the hell, why the living heck are you not putting any time into the other wolf? And I will say in response, you're correct. You're 100% right. There's nothing wrong with what you just said. You're absolutely, unassailably correct. Yet here we are. I still have a lot to learn about temperature. Well, if you have any questions, man, shoot. Always ready to answer questions. Because usually I just talk about the piece, right? Dude, look at the amount of colors we managed to squeeze in this wolf here. The variation that we have on this wolf is fucking... It's pretty goddamn good compared to what we started out with. That's a good thing. That's a success right there on the piece. That's actually why I focused, by the way, because I wanted to see if I could make it work. And we did. And we indeed did. It was a good feeling. Not an easy thing. Especially with the time frame. The second piece is another focus. Doesn't need too many details. It doesn't, right? Do you think I can do it in in 51 minutes minus 1 hour? Which is 9 minutes for you math wizards out there. Eve, you beautiful being, how's it going? It is good to see you. How's life been? Always happy to see your Instagram stories, particularly. You always tag such great art. I always like staring at it. It's good to have you in here. How's your day going so far? Everything alright, I hope? Let's give a little bit of a hint. So this mark over here is called showing your intelligence, right? Because the lip is reflective there. This is the show your intelligence mark. Really pretentious mark right here, but we're gonna do it regardless. It's like, oh, look, it's a lip. It's a lip, guys. Lips are reflective. Look at the mark. We know lips are reflective. It's really pretentious. I'm sort of recovering from being sick, but it's all good. I'll speed your recovery is here. I'm gonna keep you down too long. And when you get back, you can jump in on this Inktober thing that everybody's been doing. Just show them how it's done. I love putting these beautiful purples on the dogs. They're just so fun. It's so fun to look at. The wolves are so good. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, speed run. Light over there. Light over there. Do you plan on doing Inktober? No, I did not. Don't plan on doing Inktober. Unfortunately, I don't have the time that I would want to spend on it. And this is the same case because I've been keeping up with my regular schedules for over a year now. So Inktober's gone by twice in that time frame. Last time I just tried to do something like just because everybody was doing it, I wanted to do it as well. But I felt bad. I don't like, even though this might seem really strange, but as an artist that focuses on speed so much, you'd think that I wouldn't care about rushing a piece, but I really don't like rushing pieces. I like painting intentionally, but I don't like rushing. So I just felt kind of rushed and kind of like doing it just for the sake of doing it. So I just stopped doing it, and I'm not going to continue. If I don't have the time that I want to devote to it, I'm not going to do it. My art school is doing an ink-based project, so I might count that as Inktober 3 days. Hell yeah. Modern problems require modern solutions. How is art school, by the way? Going well? Work is killer, so I'm assuming you're blowing them away. Is that just abs right there? Just a pair of abs? Nothing else? Floating in the middle of the air like a corporeal being? How's it going, dude? Going well but busy? I would assume, right? But yeah, you're gonna be back at it with no problem whatsoever. Coming to the close of this piece, got 6 minutes left. 6 minutes, something's wrong, I can feel it. But we're gonna be fine. Why? Not because there's any truth to that statement, but because we just said it, right? We just said we're gonna be fine, so why wouldn't we? Painting, man, you're not gonna freak out about it. All good. That's not my name. That's not my name. There's a little bit of that eye showing there, man. A little bit of those beautiful, beautiful peepers showing there. Let's do a little bit of a light to the side of this. Let's go lighter and more saturated, shall we? That side, because warm light against warm local color of the eye. And this side, let's give a little bit of a notion, a little bit of a hint, a little bit of a quick little idea of what's over there. which involves just a little bit of warmness right there and a highlight. I feel like it's been a while. What, iris? Well, literally yesterday. A bit too marky, don't you think? It's a little bit too marky for my taste, because this reads better as an abstracted version than with the highlight in there. So if the highlight goes in there, it has to be a bit more specific than that, or rather it can't read as harshly as that, so we'll do it a different way. We'll do it with a slightly different mark, that is. I let before stream ended, alright? That's better. Okay. Get the light around the eyes, it's going to be really important. So we'll grab some light from there. Must have missed her. I'm glad you're reunited at last. Make some slightly prettier markings on the head because I want to finish it. So I'm gonna be thinking more about edge than value, and you can think about both depending on how you paint, right? As long as you maintain the value while you're making a mark, it's a great way of just changing the value really quickly, and also at the same time kind of hitting two birds with one stone there. What I mean to say is that if you need to go a little bit lighter, you can paint a little bit of lighter part with a texture brush. That'll save you a bunch of time because you get the texture on there at the same time. You gotta change the value where it needs to go. Did you know that dogs have these little dots on their nose, on their muzzles? Because apparently I have seemed to completely have forgotten that. It's actually pretty important to put it here. This dog is going to immediately add completion to it. What I noticed is that the amount of detail that you need to actually put on something, the more complex it is, it's fine if you just note the fact that certain things exist. Like for a tiger, for example, I do barely any lighting on my tigers because the skin's is so covered with motifs that you can get away with a lot without actually having good lighting on there. But if something's really smooth, like a hippopotamus for example, with just nothing on the skin, it's hard to draw sometimes, which is kind of contradictory to what you might think, right? You might think, okay, well, stripes seem harder, but once you figure out a good process to put them into your piece, it actually becomes quite the opposite. Which is interesting. I wouldn't think that to be the case, but it is. Even when I start my tiger pieces as well, they look so shitty. It looks so shitty, and then I jump into trying to put a little bit of the stripes on there, and suddenly the piece gets elevated by at least 5 or 6 points. And you would think, duh, tigers have stripes, but it's a little bit more than that. But the pressure's kind of off. You know that wolves literally protect each other's necks by acting cute and facing a foe? No. No, I didn't. The last minute. Nice and casual like, man. Don't gotta rush anything here. It's nice and casual like. Keep it nice and desat near the face. That'll make my worms look a little bit warmer as well. And if I have any really strong little shapes here, now's the time for me to slightly fix them. This one over here. There we go. That's our 1 hour piece right there. Not bad, right? I don't like how blue that sky is. What are you guys' thoughts on the sky? Too blue, you think? Is it cutting through a little bit too harshly? Thanks, Disintegrate, I appreciate that. You have to add just halves after that, didn't you? It's like, you're like, oh, thanks, handsome man. I was like, I'm handsome? What? Did you want the timer going? No, we just finished. But thanks for looking out for me, buddy. Appreciate you. What do you think about that sky, really quickly? Give me an opinion. Is it too harsh? What say? Plus, actually, would be nice. I think I tend to agree with you. Because I didn't know modification to the sky when I first started painting. It might be handsome, but we don't know since you won't turn on the webcam. Well, you don't know. Heck. A lot of people in the chat do, though. Yeah. I think I'm slightly with the idea of less saturation. Shall we try it out? Let's export this quickly. Because the blue in the sky is making it look a little bit too vectorized. It's a little bit too much like it's a way more stylized than it is in terms of palette, which it's not. Because if you're going to have a stark read for just one thing in the piece, it looks more like an accident than it looks like an intentional thing. And it is an accident, which is why it's worth changing it right now. Might be okay, I'll read that one. Cool. Alright. Well, let's export this. So we have a big crit to do, by the way, because Iris has a piece she wants us to look at. That'll be fun to do. Okay, this is Wolf 5. What are you posting, apps? What is this? Oh, interesting. Cool. Very nice. Alright, so I have this exported. Let's quickly try and see what happens when we adjust that blue in the sky, shall we? So let me just get the original so we can look at it. That's the original right there. Neat. Have this. So we'll do two things. The first is we compare saturation between both the reference and the image. We'll see where that lies, shall we? So there we go, that's this. So I pretty much hit the saturation bang on, and the color is almost exactly the same, right? So that's fine. However, we've done a lot to this piece. So despite, and it looks quite stark over here, not to mention, but we've done a lot to this piece, so it could very well benefit us by going a little bit brighter, maybe a little bit less saturated. So we'll quickly do a change here. So I'll make a selection here. Okay, let's adjust that blue balance really quickly. That actually looks really cool, but I need to cut the blue, not increase it. I do think I like that a bit better. So desaturate the blue in the background. Seems like a bit of a stronger piece, maybe? Yeah, it definitely does, doesn't it? Looks quite a bit better. Yeah, I do agree with this. And that's just one way we could have done that as well. I just hit it with balance. I like the saturated blue, nice contrast. Yeah, but the contrast isn't everything, right? Sometimes this is the thing, there's too much contrast in a piece. And I think we are indeed in that realm right now. Yeah, I think I do tend to like this a bit better. A bit more green in the atmosphere. Nice. And so it sort of supports some of the green that I have on my piece as well. So whenever you see a reference of two wolves cuddling, you don't know if they're feeling threatened by the camera or they're just being cute. Interesting. Jesus Christ. Alright, now I'm going crazy with power here. And make it a little bit, a little bit less harsh. Cool, that's our little painting at the very beginning of the stream. Nice, we got it out of the way. I'll export this as well. Just so we have it. We'll call this Wolf for Blue. Cool. The cheating hurts. All skill, bro. All skill. Alright, I'll put this next to our other buddies over here. Man, we have done a lot of wolves recently. Also, if you guys are fans of Maddie's stream, she's doing clouds this week. So I did some cloud with her stream earlier today. And I painted this wolfie, look at him, he's so beautiful. So I painted this from this reference, so I did the colors and I did the lighting. And that was really fun. A lot of problem solving. And it's semi-successful, I don't mind it. Some things could be done a lot better, but not a bad piece. Yeah, cool. This was an hour 30. Man, my head was bumping when I painted this one as well. Just right after I woke up, I just crawled into my chair and started painting. Alright, so we gotta do this crit. So I'm gonna take a quick little break, and when we come back, we're gonna help Iris with this wolf piece, because we're painting wolves, and it's very appropriate that we do a wolf crit, so it's gonna be fun. Stay tuned for that, if you're curious on how to, I think it's well on its way to completion already. There's a couple of things we can do to help out. But yeah, we will do indeed do that, so I'll be right back in just a couple of seconds. I'm gonna quickly stretch my legs, but I'll leave you with some of the pieces that we've done. Just leave you with 3 wolf pieces. So we bled 10 minutes of time to make a better lighting situation, which I think was a lot better, because I like the lighting so much more. Like, it looks so much better of a painting, because we have separation in this piece, right? We have very little separation in that piece. So the lighting change was kind of a demanding thing, but we somewhat pulled it off here, which is good. So we'll leave you right over here, shall we? How does that look on stream? Yeah, good enough. Alright guys, be right back. and we are back. Ooh, Mr. from Iris. I haven't drawn bulls before. I'm noticing I'm failing to comprehend their full aesthetics and how to translate on a canvas. I like general drawing experience, so it probably looks very flat at the moment. I've said a lot of it already, and after a while you get used to your mistakes and have an even harder time to put your finger on a solution. Yeah, if you ever want to get out of that, by the way, by yourself, what really helps is that don't keep working on the small, just work in the big, and that usually helps out a lot. Like when people try to fix a painting, they fix way too small, in the sense that they're gonna go in and they try to kind of like play with a couple of lines and they zoom out and see if that helped. But really, if the painting looks wrong to you, there's probably something wrong much more fundamentally, which means you need to make much bigger changes. So what usually helps is that you just save the layer you're working on, duplicate it, right? Duplicate your entire project, and then just start going crazy. Just pick a really big brush and then start making some really big changes to your canvas. It usually helps a lot more than making little changes. Anyway, just a personal note about error correction, because it's something that I do very often, and that's usually what I see, at least in my experience. Let me move that to the side really quickly. Okay, so we have a good piece. Very similar pose to what I just did on my last piece, so this is going to be kind of interesting. So I have a couple of questions to ask before we get into this. First one here is, what do you foresee the light source to be in this piece? And what's the idea behind the piece in general? If you can just give me a bit of a breakdown, that would be good. But in the meantime, I can address some general drawing problems that are kind of affecting this piece. I'm not quite sure how stylized you want to go here, but some of the proportions are going a little bit out of the ordinary and others aren't. Others are quite good, which is creating a little bit of a dissonance in the piece, because while, like for example, I could easily say that this nose is like it's a non-realistic nose. If the piece is not intended to be realistic, it's perfectly fine. I mean, this is a good nose simplification. It can easily be seen on so many different types of work. But I will be painting this realistically because I don't deal too much in stylizations. So I will be doing this quite realistically if I can get away with it. I don't have to get the answer for lighting just yet, but I can definitely start to fix the drawing. So very common phrase in painting, which is drawing is 2/3 painting. And it's very, very important to understand that, right? Because ultimately the things that really confine our piece, confine our shapes, those outer contours, really it's what makes an interesting image, because ultimately we can light something really appropriately and we can, pick all these variety of edges, but if the drawing underneath, if the actual proportioning has a problem in there, the entire painting is going to start to fail. So we really want to avoid that. We want to try and give this the best chance of success. Okay, so in that respect, let's begin. So I'm going to save this duplicate really quickly, and we'll just do all of this on one layer. Let's make some things, a little bit of change here and there to quickly head into more of a wolfy kind of idea. So I'll just base it off of the off of the reference that I see on the right. So it's a pretty good reference for wolves, I think. I like the way it looks. We can do that. Right, I normally don't have a realistic style, but it was meant to be more realistically in this piece. Okay, so then suddenly we have a problem here, because right now, like for example, this is like 2 steps away from being like a superb emoji wolf, for example, because it's a good emoji simplification right there. Because it's very, very clean, very, very symmetrical. But reality is not very clean and it's not very symmetrical. So when we want to push the realism of something, it helps to just be a bit more accurate. The first thing is, I realize that you're not using an exact reference for this. And if you're unsure about your ability to sort of develop something, especially if you're unfamiliar with the physical characteristics of something, it's very much more important to go much more off of reference than you otherwise would. Once you get familiar, you can start to do more exciting things. But if you jump the gun, you're going to find yourself a little bit at a loss. And that happens very often. So, for example, look at my wolf pieces. I think I have most of them on here. And like with the wolf pieces, I didn't jump directly ever into just going crazy with the lighting, right? So I'm doing that right now. But that's at like piece 10 maybe of wolves. So it took all these pieces for me to get familiar with the wolf and the structure, as well as a bunch of studying the skull, for example, off stream, to kind of figure out exactly how the lighting happens. And even though it's not down to a science right now, I'm comfortable with it enough to kind of make these changes on the fly. That's what led to a piece like this, for example, with the lighting being a lot more dynamic, and I start from almost nothing from my reference. But it's a difficult road, so you don't want to jump into it. So I would suggest strongly, especially as a beginner, and I know certain beginners like Azar, for example, feels a little bit diminished by going off of reference, but there's no stigma behind it. It's just you're working within your means, and that's a sensible thing for an artist to do. The one side looks bloated because it was meant to be hair in motion, but I created a bloated effect instead of moving hair. Okay, so we can solve that as well. Mr. Randomly says hello, he wanted me to say this. Eve, ridicule him. Really, just make fun of him. Because if he doesn't have 5 thumbnails right now, if he's not looking at 5 different thumbnails, I am very disappointed in him. Just so fucking disappointed. Like, I went to do my pull-up workouts. I finished like 50 pull-ups, and I came back and he was putting lines on his thumbnail. It wasn't even putting value down. And I just felt so shaken in my core. Anyway. What a prick. Alright, so let's just adjust this according to the reference, right? So do you have any preference? Yeah, do you have any preference, Iris, about the ref you want to use for the face? Like, what's the emotion you're going for? Is it going to be like, oh, look at me, I'm so cool? Or is it going to be more of the idea that, oh, look at me, I'm a cute wolf, at me? Like, what's the idea? Because this reference is kind of stern, right? A little bit of a stern reference. So I'm going to be a little bit concerned about that. So the overall measurement's actually not that bad, but there are some things that we kind of want to fix immediately. So I'm just going to make some kind of harsher lines. Just going to get more of the form out of the way, right? Just get the form a bit more clearer. So I made those lines just because I want to develop those eyebrows. So I like this lovely little, see this shape in between the face right there? Okay, so fierce but gentle, I can do that with the eyes, that's fine. So you see that shape over there in the center? Very, very common shape, right? It goes outward and then inward and then outward. This very, very common hourglass shape. You see that in so many of these references right there. So it's here, this one. You see that same shape right there? And for these wolves over there, it's the same shapes right over there. That same light shape, because it deviates into darkness right over there. So a very common shape. It's almost like a, what's a good comparison? It's like a maxi pad on the dog's head. So very common stuff. So that's going to have to go to the piece, right? It's going to have to go and feature a little bit. So we make that change really quickly. And another thing to realize is that there's not as strong of a distinction. So whenever we put light values, whenever we put any sort of light on something, we're trying to show what the form of that particular thing is. It's because form is revealed through light and shadow, right? So when we add a shadow over here, and when we add a light over here, we're giving the viewer information about things that we don't necessarily expect, okay? I'm doing critiques here, yes. So what's actually happening here is that when it's lit like this in darkness and this in light, what it's trying to indicate is that the side of the wolf's head is more like this. This is what it means, and that's why it looks somewhat strange. It looks more like this. It's just coming out of the face, as opposed to it actually tapering out of the face. So the actual head of the wolf is like this, right? It tapers slightly, and it tapers back in, right? That's the wolf head, like that. So we're missing this taper that goes in all directions. So it doesn't just taper like this, it tapers like that. But the way that we've done it right now, from the top it'll look like this, as opposed to like this. Right? So the light can't just fall in this area, it has to fall in all these areas right over there. Okay? So remember, like every time you put a value down, you're trying to like reveal certain information about the form. That's why this light looks a little bit strange. So while we're doubling down on it, we should actually be crumbling the boundary here. So let's crumble it. Right, and immediately we get that sense of realism back, because that's what's actually happening there. That's what we expect. So one of the funny things about people that draw with good proportion and people that look at artwork is that everybody kind of knows vaguely what's right and wrong, right? Even if they actively or inactively think about it, most of the time people will be able to tell you if something looks off or something doesn't, even if they're not an expert artist, because we are really attuned to certain proportions. We really know what certain things look like just by virtue of the fact that we looked at them so many times throughout our lives. Like faces are a big one, but animals are a close second because we looked at so many of them growing up. So some things will really scream out to you. It'll really scream out to you and say, okay, well, that doesn't look right. And that's when you just jump in the reference and then make comparisons, okay? So that's one big change that we just did, which I think is an important one. So I'm not gonna go kind of crazy with these values over here, but I'll keep it quite close to what you already have. I'll keep it like that. I'm gonna use what you already have there. Okay, so we're in pretty good shape. So another thing about wolves that's quite common is that you almost have like a plate on the face. I almost compare this to a horse. So the side of the horse has a very distinct zygomatic curve right below the right behind the eye. So the horse is like we've drawn horses so many times before, but the horse anatomy is like this, right? So we start right there. We go into the lip, the bottom lip. It curls around, goes into the jaw, and you have your big old masseter muscle right there, right? And you have your eyes somewhere on top of here. Let's right about there. The forehead. And there's a structure right behind this that people oftentimes miss, but it's really important to draw for horses. It's a little curve right there because they have a zygomatic arch right behind their eye, and it's super important to get that in there. So there's a very similar thing, because the reason why this is an important to note for horse anatomy is because very often times for the majority of lighting conditions, there's going to be a really sharp, really dark shadow in this region of the horse's face. And you can look at this for any horse. Same thing goes for right over here, for example. There's going to be a harsh form shadow right over there, and same thing goes for over here. There's going to be a bulge. Like they're very common points in most animals that you're going to see. They're going to have these little points, and it's worth remembering because it'll kind of let you shorthand things. Just like when we draw a person's face, what do you draw when you want to draw a face quickly? Like really quickly. What do you draw? Well, you draw the notion of the eye sockets. You draw the underside of the nose. You draw the underside of the lip, right? And you'll probably draw the shadow underneath the neck, right? And then suddenly it already looks human-like. Maybe the corners of the lips right there, right? And then suddenly we have what resembles a human face, right? In shorthand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shapes, and we get resembling human already. So there's some really key features and key areas in everything that you will see that really define what it is to you in most general circumstances. And you will find that things that you even know will look strange in certain angles because it's just that you're unfamiliar with that angle, right? It's very common, especially when you're drawing from life or photographs. Sometimes you'll draw even people, for example. You draw a person in a really weird angle. Like one of the most common ones you'll see is drawing bow-legged people, like bow-legged girls, for example. It's completely natural. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not in any pain. But when somebody looks at your drawing, they'll say, she looks like she broke her legs. What are you doing? It looks odd. It looks strange. But it's natural. But people aren't used to looking at that, generally speaking. So they'll kind of complain about it. So just like that for a dog, for a wolf, one of the easiest things you can look at are these things over here, like I said. So the reason this particular shape is formed is because there's a cheekbone right over there. It's a very prominent cheekbone right over there. And there's a gap over here because there's a tuft of muscle that comes from the back. So you have a little bit of this, little bit of that on just about every wolf that you'll see. So on this one over here, you see it right over there. Right? Even on the wolves that are slightly different, so these type of wolves, even then you can see the faint hint of that happening there, right? It's almost like the face is framed. It's framed in between. Right? Just like a human face is framed like this. So when you draw a human face, when you put the eyes in, right? So you put your glabella right there, right? And when you want to do something in shorthand, sometimes you'll do this shape over here on the side of the eye oftentimes, because that's zygomatic bone going into zygomatic arch, a very, very common shape. And this will go into shadow a lot of the times as well, depending on, especially for males, will go into shadow right there. It's a very similar shape to that. That's how I kind of equate it in my head. It's just like I have this kind of bendy shape over there for a human being. I have this bendy shape slightly tilted for wolf. I have this kind of tree right there. So very common. On all these wolf references, you'll see it. And one of the fun things to think about is that these are all in different lighting conditions. So it's got to be an area that's going to be dark most of the time, right? Most of the time. Of course, in references where it's in extreme light, you're going to barely see a hint of it because everything's being blown out. Look at the shadow right there. You see it again, right? See that tree right there? Very, very common. And you don't get that on all animals. You don't get that on cats at all. Cats don't have that. In fact, in the majority of cats, you don't even see the eyelid even, because they have such heavy, these beautiful growths on the top of the eyes. They have those big brow muscles. And they have like a brow that's gonna cover the eye a little bit because they need to protect from the sun. They have a lot more of that activity happening right there. So that's why it happens. So let's put that in there because it's one of those iconic things, right? One of those iconic things. Really, when you're drawing something, especially for time, which is what I do, I really look for getting like 4 or 5 things right on the canvas, which are really important to get right. I know if I get those right, the rest of it is just trying to make sure that I don't distract from the things that I did get right. It's very common. If you study pictorial composition, we have the idea of a value statement in there, and it's very similar to this idea. The idea of a value statement is that you have to create something that's really eye-catching in your piece very early on in your piece. So when you're doing a thumbnails even, something that really represents what your piece is for. So it could be supporting your main character or fight, scenic like landscape or whatever, but you pick something and you double down on it. And everything that you do beyond that point should be to support that idea. So very similar. There are certain points in every drawing that need to be kind of focused on. So that's one of those points right there. So what we just did, that's one of those points. Okay, so suddenly we're gonna get more of that shape in there, we get more of that information in there. So I'm going really slow right now, but we'll go quicker right now from right about now. So there's some fundamentals in there. So now we'll actually go into the painting over there. So let's fix this face up pretty quickly. So what are we missing really quickly? What are we missing that makes this into a wolf? So we're missing a couple of things. Number one is that we're missing some darks. The darks are going to be really important because some of the most formative areas in every painting are going to be in your darks. So if you look at artists like Istabrak, for example, Istabrak has such an enormous amount of appreciation and respect for the idea of occlusions. So occlusions are areas in the painting that light cannot travel too well into. Not just that, but they offer these natural areas of line almost on a painting. Because generally speaking, when you do paintings, especially if you do it in my style of alla prima sometimes, you don't have the luxury of just lining everything. You can't. Because lines are just so distinct, they're just so eye-catching that it's not easy for you to just put a line everywhere because it's going to ruin the feel of a painting. It's not going to look like a painting anymore. So it's a genuine concern. So when you get the opportunity to put a dark in there, to put a real genuine dark in there, it's a big deal and you have to put it, because if you miss it, you miss something that's so distinct, that's so important, that everybody's going to see that you missed it. So it's really important that when there is going to be the opportunity to have a dark someplace, it's your responsibility to put that dark in there. You have to. Because one of those big formative elements, or what makes something look like something, right? One of those big elements. Okay. So we put those darks in just now. And forgive me, but I'm just going to paint over your nose because it's just a little bit too perfect, right? And sometimes when things are too perfect, they'll draw attention. And I don't want it to draw attention. I want the attention to be mostly up here near the eyes. Okay? So beyond that, also you still haven't told me about the light, by the way. I'm giving you plenty of time, but eventually I'm going to have to get that answer. Also, I'm going to prevent the values from being too distinct on the face. Okay? So I'm just going to quickly bridge this. And I'm going to bridge this into the mouth. And again, we have a dark right there, right? Because remember, we've drawn dogs from the side. Look at that beautiful jowl right there. We have all these black dark lips right there. Very common for most animals. Those lips are super dark when it comes to a cat. Those big cats are almost characterized by the darkness around their mouth, and dogs are not really that different. So they're both hunters. They both have big, dark, really rough lips. So it's really worth the idea of putting that in quite strongly. So we'll put it in quite strongly. There's no sense dilly-dallying. So that beautiful reed of the lips right there. And the fun part about this is that you can put this in really early. This is like one of maybe the 7th or 8th stroke that I put on my face, generally speaking. I put this beautiful little darkness on the side of the mouth because it's super important. Another thing is that when you see something that's in a certain way, when you see something that's developed in a certain fashion, we don't want to upset that. It's called maintaining the abstraction, right? We talked about this before earlier on the stream. So while it might seem like a good idea to do this, to separate the nose and the bottom of the mouth, really they're not that separate because of the dark value leading up to the nose. So we can justifiably put something like this in and still have that realistic kind of read to the face. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly get the rest of the darks in there. So just to make this a bit clearer, because you can't maybe see it on the stream, but there's a little bit of a divot here on most dogs' mouths. I'll show it to you on the references. So right over there, see that little upwards divot right there, same thing over there, and same thing in this reference. And this is from the side, you see that? Goes upward, right? Tapering upward. Very important. It's one of those small little subtleties. Tens, how's it going? Good to see you. So get rid of my harsh mark there, put the real mark in there. So I'm not really varying my colors too much, because we're solving this piece by just drawing better. Right, and suddenly we're already at that much more realistic kind of level to the piece, right? So we'll make some little quality of life changes for the fur in just a second, but just the change in the proportion of the face, the way things were structured, the way that things relate to each other, we've gotten a little bit ahead of this piece. Right? We've gotten a little bit, slightly more in the realm of possibility here. So I'm gonna cut that little mouth right there because the mouth's looking a little bit too harsh. The dog mouth, generally speaking, it'll follow this kind of idea. So rather than have a lot of like real estate on the jaw area, on the bottom of the jaw, they have very thin jaws, okay? It's important to realize because of the fact that look at the way that the form is. So it goes all the way in and it tapers. The thinnest point is in the front. So you're not gonna see all that much, especially when it's pointed down like this. You're gonna see very, very little. So we make that change really quickly. Like that. And it can be a difficult thing to conclude on as well because it's a mouth. You want to show that it's there, but sometimes the things that we really want to show don't really need to be shown. Okay, this kind of idea. It's going fine. I just updated my Twitch and now my my eyes hurt. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're gonna fix the fur really quickly. So I'm gonna use just probably one brush for this, but it's just a matter of fixing the edges. I can do it quite harshly here. I know that Eve, if you're still in here, I did see the comment about the crit there. I will definitely look at it right after I finish this one, if you're still in here. So we can just fix this issue with the fur. So before I do this, just a quick little note here. When I do fur, when I do anything that involves hair or any complex shape, it's really important to think about sectioning things, okay? So even way back when, about a year ago, I was teaching people how to do hair, and I barely knew how to do hair myself at the time. Still don't, by the way, but what's really important, what really helped me, is the idea of just simplifying things into big, lumpy shapes, okay? So it'll really help you as well if you do animation, if you do stuff like... So I learned this from Aaron Blaze properly, but the way that you think about this hair is not as one big ambiguous thing, but it actually follows a rhythm, and the rhythm is very layered. So you have these triangles all over the wolf, like this, for example. You have one right there, you have one right there, you have one right there, you have one right here. So I'm going to try and follow these the best I can, because that's really what's going to give me good solid read on my piece, okay? Because they're these kind of gestures all over the wolf. You just need to know where they go. And the fun thing about these insertion points is that they're quite common across most animals. I'm sorry, but most of the same kind of animals. So they're going to insert in a very similar fashions on most of these wolves. So if you figure this out once, you'll always know to look for it. So with that respect, we're really going to try and figure that out. So how do we really paint that though? So we know there's a rhythm in there, but how do we paint it according to that rhythm? The answer is we look for the occlusions in between the hair. But just like how we'll section the hair off in a person, we'll do the same thing for a wolf. So I'll paint in those darks first, okay? So there are certain darks in here that I can kind of use as almost like pseudo lines to guide my eye. So there's going to be one right there, going all the way down, all the way to here. That's your very, very classic. When you see emblematic wolves, when you see wolves that are icons, this is the major one that everybody draws, because it gives you that very typical wolf shape. This shape right there, that's hyper simplified. But why is that the hyper simplification? Because you have the same thing in reality, right? You have the same shape right there. You see that? So we want to look for that kind of shape right there, because it's a very dog-like shape, and it's important to have that in there. Okay, so it goes like that. Same thing on the other side, it goes that way. So you want to follow that gesture, like that. Right, and the same thing down here. We have a secondary amount of hair going like that and going this way. Right, it separates it down there. So I'm just drawing the occlusions right now. So this is actually going to stay in my painting. Because of the quality of the painting, I can't really paint this with the exact same amount of value that I want, because it's going pixely. But that's fine. It's going to be okay for the explanation. So I'll just paint in the occlusions, okay? Just in between. And now that I have that done, my job is very easy. So all I have to do is I have to layer properly, that's all. So I'll get rid of the excess really quickly here. We'll just paint over the excess. So suddenly things are already looking a little bit more orderly, right? And now the only thing that we need to do, I could even have chosen to make this a bit darker, been a bit more stronger with my decision there. That's fine. So now my only job to do over here is just to fill in this gap with something that's meaningful. So we initially need to fill this with something that's relatively similar to fur texture, right? So we'll use this kind of brush, a simple little rake brush here. And we just need a rake on top, just to fill that layer in fully. Just to completely convey to the viewer, at the end of the day, what we're looking at is fur, because now it's just an edge problem. We have sectioned it off properly, so that was a simplification. So now we just have to fill everything up. And slowly but surely, the more we do this, the more we get closer to that goal. That's the idea. Right, that's why we section things off the way that we do. So as long as we maintain that separation, maintain that sectioning, it's always going to look right. Because things have a fashion there. It's important that we have this kind of rhythm, this layered rhythm, right? Because it adds so much to the piece. This layered rhythm. Because it's in nature, even if you can't see it clearly in the reference, it's always there if you look for it. Because it happens to be the fact that the insertions of these follicles, right, the way the thing's structured, they're they're not hyper similar among all the references, but they're always there in some fashion or the other, so it's really worth looking for. And once you find it, you paint according to that. Paint according to what you see. Right, and of course there are going to be these large natural areas of occlusion in between, just like, for example, you have areas like the part of your hair on your own head. You'll have these areas that are just a bit of where two kind of large clumps meet together, stuff like that. You gotta just slightly problem solve to that, but for the most part, you'll be sitting nice and clear for this. There you go. So you said go crazy with the lighting. I think I saw that comment at some point. Okay, we can just address the lighting ever so slightly, and I'll include the crit. Also, be a little bit wary of the eyes. I wouldn't do the eyes like this. They look a little bit too stark. What I would do is maybe something like this. I can still maintain the blue eyes, but I'll do it a bit differently. So let's just darken over there. I want to save this blue color. So we'll do it a little bit differently. So rather than have that overt, we can maintain darkness in here. And have this nice and dark. And we can put in that blue, but we'll put it in a much more sensible fashion. So we'll blue it in like that. But we don't need all that much, because you see it's against such a crazy amount of desat and warm that you don't need nearly as much blue to get the read that we're looking for. Right, so we can go a little bit crazy with the saturation, but we don't need all that much because of the color contrast. Not all that much required to make that work properly. This kind of idea. And everything else is just obeying the lines that we just drew and fixing the edges. Don't be afraid of defocusing. I defocus all the time when I do fur. By defocusing, I mean you don't have to paint everything with rigorous amounts of detail. You can easily defocus stuff. The most heavy-handed way of doing that is the blur tool. But there's no sense in painting everything super directly. Of course, there's going to be a rhyme and rhythm behind how you defocus, but just defocusing a little bit is oftentimes just sufficient to make something look instantly more finished. And what the reason behind that, the fundamental behind that, is the idea that it creates a much needed lost edge in the painting, and lost edges just look good. Important to have lost edges in your work. There's a full spectrum of edges, right? What's the sense in not having them? Okay, so we have gone from, I can quickly show you. We've gone from, hopefully I have the original, because I may have accidentally, because I collapse layers very automatically. It's part of like my rotation of key bindings, so oftentimes I don't save my layers properly. Okay, I have the original now. I'll just show you where we are. We went from there to here. We brought a lot more realism to the piece, while still maintaining the idea of the piece, right? So it's been retained for the most part. Then everything passes. A lot of it's not all brushwork, but a lot of it is brushwork to get the solution. But just to conclude over here, because we're just about done here, I know you had some issues with the pause there, but that's something you can, with the same kind of approach, you should be able to solve it with the reference. But if you cannot, then feel free to DM me about it. It's perfectly okay. But one thing I want to note in this piece overall is compositionally, it's a little bit kind of alone because we have very similar size. I don't talk composition too often on the stream, but it is important. It's just that we paint from reference oftentimes here, so we don't talk about it too much. But the problem is that we have these very regular sized placed objects in negatives and in positives on the canvas, which is a little bit of a problem. So we want to slightly fix that. So what I would prefer the piece to look like is perhaps something closer to this, wherein the negatives on the side aren't as conflicting. That leads to a little bit of a stronger read on the piece, a bit more focused, because we have these, I mean, some people will say large empty spaces, which is also partially true, but we can do something like this and the piece looks a little bit more kind of closely, like a little bit more compact, I should say. Looks like it's a bit more finished already, like that. And as far as lighting goes, we could do anything and everything with this. If you want to make the piece look interesting, there are a few things we can do. But given the way that your background is, what I would like maybe to see is have a strong backlight on the piece and have a contradictory front light on the piece. So what we could do is this, for example, in this particular piece, I could have a strong cool backlight and have it lit warmly from the front. So in order to do that, I guess we could do it right now. It won't take that much time. So we had to do it like this. So we get the levels down really quickly. That's saturation, my bad. So bring the whole level of the piece down really quickly. Just like that. Make a mask. So what I want to do is I want to mask out my character really quickly. Because again, when you want to light a piece, you start from darkness. There's no way around it. You want to relight a piece especially, because there's no sense in like lighting something without that there being dark in there. It's just important for it to be that way. So this gets lit by maybe 50%, so we get a little bit of light right there. Right? And then everything else, especially behind the character, gets lit by a lot. Okay, we gotta add some amount of sense to this, so we need to unify a little bit. So the light will be spilling over the ground, so the ground gets unified, and we apply a little bit of that light spilling that way. Not too much, of course, whatever the perspective allows. Like that, right? So just readjusting the lights so that the light comes from the back and have a little bit of light coming from the front. And the next change would be, because we went from this to this, next change would be this. So just a little bit of a change over here. Just gonna add a bit more of a light in the focal areas. That's gonna be my secondary light source right there. This is more interesting. Okay. So we've focused in a little bit on the character, which is really important. And right after that, what we do is we quickly collapse the layers really quickly. And I'm going to change the light source in the back to a cool. Okay, so we can do that again with what we just did. What we must do, simply do another shift. Now that, and this is going to all be straight painted, by the way. I'm just doing this because it's quicker. I want to lighten up that background, so I'll make another mask. This is the mask of the character now. And again, we have the warm-on-warm conflict, the warm-on-warm that is, which we don't want to happen. That's exactly why we shift the light source to a cool. So we'll have cool on warm. We'll get the color contrast, so everybody's happy. Cool. I've got the lights in there, all my backlight's reading properly. So now I just have to do color balance. Bring that blue in there, and make sure my character is still warm by doing this. That's how I would adjust the entire lighting of the piece. So I have the cool against warm, light against dark, so double contrast, so it's focused on character. And I have the opportunity right now on the piece to add nice little glowing yellow saturation, for example. In this area, I can light the piece a bit more warmer. Right now, I don't mind the piece being lit coolly from the background, that's perfectly fine as well. So I don't have access to your layers, so this is a bit harder to do. But I can still do it, like I just showed you. And of course, we can add more of a blue, more of a green, just more of a cool, and of course has to be more of a light as well to maintain the value structure. So we can add a lot of that in the background and have it be nice and bright. Things are reading a bit strange right now because of the layering. Hold on, let me just collapse everything. I have a boatload of layers right now. Okay, and then we can just up the effect of the light around if you so choose. This is a very common lighting scenario, by the way. Used by a whole bunch of people. It's whenever you want to be a little bit lazy with your lighting, you kind of do this, which is why I did it. Because it's easier to make this kind of thing look good quickly. So it works for the stream. But again, I encourage you to look at whatever you need to make it work. Maybe a bit of light over here on the sides of the trees. Just again for unification purposes. When I say unification, that means it's not a good idea in painting oftentimes to just go very harshly on particular things to just show them that they're actually there. For example, if you want to show a character, do you just spotlight the character? No, because it's a bit too obvious, right? There are cases where that does make a lot of sense to do that, but there are more than a billion different cases where you don't want that to happen. You don't want things to be that kind of obvious and that on the nose. It just looks, it kind of affects the believability aspect of your piece. So you want to make sure that the lighting is somewhat more uniform. Also, this opens up a fun opportunity here to add in some of that wow factor that may have been missed in the piece. The wow factor over here will be this beautiful little rim light right there. So it's going to have saturated rim lights to the sides of the piece. So you get the opportunity to do this like on your piece. You can add a beautiful little blue on the sides like that. Just whatever appropriate. I'm doing it a bit heavy-handedly, but the idea is this, right? So you can add these lovely little blue tones towards the side of the piece. That's your Fresnel light, if there are any light-based artists or artists that do color and light study for the specifics. It's Fresnel light on the fur. I'm going to see a lot of it up here as well. A lot of semi-transparent fur up top usually. So I get this kind of wow effect right now with the light blue. So I'm doing this very heavy-handedly, right? So I'm not doing this very specifically, but it gets the job done really quickly. This kind of idea. So yeah, that's how I would relight the piece. I hope you think that's an improvement. I kind of like the incidental pinks in the foliage. That's kind of cool. I didn't mean for that to happen, but it looks nice. Also, all the modification stuff, by the way, I would personally straight paint all of that. It's just to kind of show you, since you asked me to just go crazy with the lighting. It's just to kind of give you the result quickly, but I don't intend for you to use any modification, because I personally would not. I would do the majority of this just by straight paint. Because it's more comfortable, it's more controlled. And this makes a lot more sense. That's kind of idea. Yeah, so I gave some proportion advice and some ideas about the fur, and also how to light the piece. So hopefully that was an improvement. I think it's looking pretty solid right now. Also, again, wow factor for the eyes, I can never ignore. Because it's just free infinite points basically when you add like really, really pretty looking rims and speculars and highlights. So something like this is also not entirely remiss. Add a bit of that blue light in the eyes. In my personal taste, I don't like that, but people have different tastes, so I'm not gonna harp on that too much. I don't like heavy highlights, but I realize that I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, so I'm not gonna push that agenda on anybody. But I think that's an improvement. I'll make the file available to you on the Discord. Ooh, Eve has a piece. Nice. Eve, do me a favor if you're still here. Link me the reference as well. Let's see how we can interpret it better. You're a very competent painter already. Okay, let's just paint. Pick the new and the old. There you go. The new piece and the old piece are both on the Discord. Hopefully that made some sense. And again, I want you to use the same kind of advice for the pause as well. Use a reference, figure out what's important, what's key to it, and then apply it. But you want me to post a reference? Just put it in the general references, if you will. Perfectly fine. Let's look at the piece though. Eve is a very good artist, by the way. If you guys are not familiar with her work, go follow her on Instagram. Let's see. Cool. This is her piece. You guys enjoyed that for a little bit. We'll get that reference. Very nice. Cool. Yeah, no problem, Iris. Glad it could be helpful. Alright. So with more beginners, I generally just give advice, but I like to ask questions when people are competent already. So the first thing is, why the cropping? I'm curious about why would you want to have this much space to the sides of the image? Like, is there a specific reason? Are you under a constraint, for example? Did they require it to be in a particular frame? Which is very possible. I've had the requirements given to me before for my pieces as well. Because the pieces, it's far more suited to this kind of composition, right? Because again, the piece doesn't occupy all that much on the canvas. Instagram doesn't let me crop it how I'd like. Okay, that's more than sensible. That makes sense. I will cut the ears off. Yeah, makes sense. The horizontal cropping, right? Okay, but I'm sure you intended to have the piece like this. Yeah, in the future, if you want to really avoid that, I would just put black bars on both sides. Because when the entire piece is like this, it tends to look a little bit incomplete, which is a big fucking problem. Because people kind of pick up on that really quickly. So I'd black bar it, just for the sake of pieces, but the actual rendering is quite good. I really like it. But let's just go inward here. Because I actually really dig these shapes over here on the on negatives. I think they're fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about things that we can do to improve the piece, at least moving forward. So you've done really good work for the values, and the proportions are pretty good as well. There's a little bit of an issue with edges, because the edges are starting to demand a bit too much attention to us, and it's making the entire piece look a little bit too hyper sharpened, which is a problem in a lot of people's work, so there's nothing unique about it. But it's easily solvable. And the way it's solvable is that we don't treat every single area with the same amount of importance, right? I think that's really, really important. So areas like this, for example, and even this, for instance, we're drawing away from where we want to focus, because if you really want to push a painting to be a very effective looking painting, we want the focus is going to live over here, but there are higher contrast areas and more areas of interest away from area of focus, which is kind of slightly lessening the effect of the piece. So what's a little bit better in this kind of case is that we reserve these hard edges for the area of interest. And if at all we use these hard edges over there, we should make sure that those hard edges are pale in comparison to over here. Because right now there are a bunch of really beautifully rendered, I must say, very interesting looking hard edges right over there. But in the art of picture making, we always want a direct focus. So much better to put them over here, okay? So there are a few ways of solving this. So either we lessen the impact of edges over here, and these edges, by the way, they include the silhouette edge. So all these edges over here, we need to slightly dampen their impact, or we make the edges in the area of interest much stronger. So how do we make an edge stronger? So we can make it in two ways. Either we paint it literally with a stronger edge, so it's a much sharper edge, or alternatively, we can up the value in that particular area, right? So we can actively, as an artist, we can make the choice to say, okay, well, I want this particular area to be much more viewed by the audience, by the viewer. So I will I'll amp up that shadow right over there. I'm going to amp up the values over here, because when the values are harder, when the values are harsher, it's going to make the edge harsher as well, right? So make the conscious decision over here to say, okay, well, I'm going to create more of a contrast right over there. And suddenly this is coming back into the running, right? It's back in the running right now for area of interest. Suddenly it has this darkness on there. And of course, to unify this entire thing, because I can't just have darkness to that level over there, I have to have it in similar areas. So I have a free area of extreme darkness here with a dark eyelid, and I'll take it. I'll take that free area because it's a good one. It's a really important one. This kind of idea, right? So you just really jump on that. Same way with the irises, right? The iris is also a really free area of darkness. And these are important again because this amount of darkness is eye-catching, and you want the viewer to focus right over here, right on the face, on the places that are important, right? So this is one of those subtle things, but then you're no amateur, right? You know what you're doing with painting. So when we really want to push the work to the next level, we got to take every little bit of interest that we can. We got to manage every bit of interest that we can, because the more we're able to put over here makes us more effective. Because what ultimately ends up happening is that when you realize just how important keeping the focus is, it lessens the amount of effort you yourself have to put in as an artist into your work, because you realize that if you just put more over here, you don't have to put as much over here, which means the overall time that you spend on the piece reduces quite dramatically, and you still end up with a very serviceable, very, very good painting, because you don't need to do all that much. Additionally, I see a little bit of a line here, which is, so that's one way of solving that issue. Alternatively, we can just, again, we just strengthen these shapes over here, we make them a little bit harder, so we do the bit selection maybe if you want to. But again, I'm content over here because I like the way you've drawn this. I'm content with just increasing the contrast. So just playing with the value, just harshening the value, and that'll give me a lot of the area of interest back to where the face is, right? So suddenly, this is back in the running there. So we have all these lights over here, we just strengthen them. Even if it doesn't seem like it on the reference, right? It's just a good idea in general, because when you have the separation of value, when you have such a crazy amount of it on the face, immediately it jumps, the viewer jumps over here when you have all these crazy shapes, because before it was a little bit too homogeneous, and we had these breakout shapes over here, over here, over here, and this shape over here that were drawing way too much interest, right? And they'll draw far more interest. Shapes like this, for example, you got to be a little bit careful about it when you snip things out of your reference, because suddenly, because of the way this is shaped, right? Because it's a triangle in a very circular shape language, very circular, it's not circles, but it's very curved, right? It's very curved in all these areas. We have this sharp triangle, and that's drawing a little bit too much attention. But it doesn't seem like it in this reference, mainly because of the fact that this value difference is not that high anymore. Right? It's not nearly as it's not this high. That's a crazy contrast right there. Especially this edge is almost the entire length of the color wheel. Or the triangle rather. So we gotta be a little bit careful about that. We can't have that happen. So how do you solve that issue now? Because we have this being so harsh and so hard in comparison, again, it's drawing away from our focal area. So how do we solve that? There are a few ways. So number one is that we just defocus, right? So we defocus this edge completely. But the thing about defocusing is that it may not necessarily be in the style of your work. So you don't necessarily want to do it if that's the case. So alternatively, what you could do is we could simply add something of a gradient on the piece, right? Something on this side. So what we'll do is this. So we'll add a gradient upwards, and that gradient is going to cut how harsh that shape reads. Also, bear in mind, and this is going to be a very obvious thing to say, but just bear in mind for anybody else listening, if ever at any point you think this is just minutiae, you're absolutely right, by the way. It's completely minutiae. We're just creating minutiae right now. Because like I said, the piece is good. It's a good piece. We're just talking about how we can push it a bit hard. Just a little bit higher, but remember the changes that we make right now, they're going to be very minor. But see, once we put a gradient in, suddenly it's not competing as hardly, right? So we could solve it in multiple ways. So again, it's an edge problem. So the reason that edge was so harsh is one, how it's painted, and two, the value difference, right? Because edges are not completely removable from value. So that's why we do this in this particular way, because I could solve it in two ways. Like I said, I could make this way softer, right? I can make it way softer. And this is softer, by the way, because it's not as harsh of a transition. So I can do stuff like this, but again, it may not be in your style. So we can solve it the other way around by using value. So again, we just use the fundamentals here. And there are a billion ways of making things look soft. You can actually make this look soft in your own style. I can do it like this if you'd like. So it would be like that. It would just be a little bit more noise.
I can't believe you've done this.
Maybe a little bit more soft brushing. Normally I do gradients with my client specifically one in a single color. Okay, well, your client has terrible taste, it's not your fault then. Thanks for the follow, by the way. Yeah, but that's really what's solving the issue of the edge, because right now suddenly like we're slowly going back to where our eyes truly need to look for in the piece, right? We're slowly getting back to where we really need to look for. Where we really need to focus on. So again, there's some minor problems in the edge. Yeah, I got time. There's some minor problems in the edge over here, so we can slightly cut the read just a little bit, right? A little bit of brushing. What I'm doing over here is I'm just brushing this darkness on the tips of your transitions, okay? And that cuts the value a little bit, makes it less harsh. And it's more of an easy fix. There are better ways of doing this, which is you just replace the color right there with more strokes, but you know, for the time being, and especially it should be kind of noted for painting and picture making in general. Like as you head away from your area of focus, the demand on you as an artist reduces a lot, and that's important because if the demand on you reduces, like I said before, the amount of time you need to spend reduces, so your turnaround increases, which is just good for you in general. It lets you do more pieces, you know, get more work out there, and you can learn more from your work. And biggest of all, you can satisfy clients quicker. Because it's more about making something look finished than finishing things, especially when doing commissions. If you can convince somebody that something that you did is finished, that's all you need to do. That's all your business as an artist is, especially for what is being paid. And that's not you're not hoodwinking anybody, like you're not deceiving anybody by that, because people want something that looks finished, right? Looks finished and is finished. The distinction is looks finished is for everybody but you, and is finished is only for you. So if you want to learn something completely with the piece, like if you really want to take it to a good amount of finish, that's up to you. But remember, that's not what the client wants, right? The client wants just an idea of it being finished. So if he's convinced, that's all you have to care about. That's a very artist-specific thing to say, but it's very, very true. There's a saying in painting, and I heard this from Nathan Fox. The saying goes, it takes 1/3 of the time to make something look good, and 2/3 of the time to make something look perfect. But good is good enough. Like 99% of the case, unless it's for a major production or for your portfolio, good enough is fine. It really is. So it's worth thinking about. So when you define area of focus, really, really it's worth thinking about how much time and how much effort they want to spend in other areas. Because the more time and the more effort you spend in these kind of areas, the more these problems arise, these competing problems arise, your complexity of the piece skyrockets. It's a problem. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about over here, so there's a little bit of a value issue here, maybe slightly adjust that, but it's not game breaking. There's a line here that I don't like. There's a line over here, the separation of the face, right over here with the color. It's too harsh, and you don't need it. Which is strange because you don't rely on lines anywhere else in your entire piece. But oddly enough, it's only here, which is strange. So why is that there? What's the idea behind that? Were you not able to get a good read over here? I'm actually really curious because you have such a good command or value everywhere else. I'm quite surprised you're not using value to separate this as well. Because it tends to kind of like cut the piece a bit too harshly. Is it stylistic? What's the idea behind the line? That's my last idea. I have no idea either. Well, it strikes me as a little bit curious because it's a little bit too harsh, especially for the way that you've drawn. Because you have a really good command over saturation. I really like the piece, the way that it's colored. So it strikes me as a little bit odd that you jump on lines in this particular area. So I'm just gonna get rid of it because you don't need it. You really don't need it. Your values are good, so you don't need to rely on them at all. So we can just get rid of them entirely. Because what happens when we can get rid of them is that we can do it with brushwork. We can do it with brushwork, so suddenly we can do stuff like this and make it look more poofy. Right, get that nice little edge right there. Up that poofness. I mean, this isn't a poofy animal, it's a pug. Pug's gonna be poofy though. Like, it works perfectly fine without it, right? Like, the line's almost completely gone now, it works perfectly. Like I said, your values are good. It's a little bit not as focused in the face. That's something we fixed early on in the crit. But now it is. No, it's fine. See, I like that a lot more. It's not jumping out at me too much. So yeah, very minor changes, but things to think about, right? So edge control is a big one. The biggest theme over here in this particular crit was edge control. Just be a little bit more careful and really remember like where your focal area is. That's going to help you a lot, because the time that you say that, okay, I am happy with this piece, because I don't think you timed this. If you did, tell me though, I'd be really impressed. But if you didn't time this, the moment that you say to yourself, I am happy, I want to show my client, that moment's going to happen 2 or 3 hours earlier than you usually would have it, if you just really focus on trying to think about the area of focus. That's important as well, like I said before. That turnaround is really, really important. But yeah, that's about it. I don't think I have too much more to say about that. It's unfortunate that you're 3 hours. It's pretty fucking good for 3 hours. It's really good. I mean, it's just good in general, not even for 3 hours. Good painting. Do you want to spend a lot of time on it? Well, you're the same as me then. I really don't like overspending time on pieces. So that focusing on area of focus, that'll let you conclude a lot quicker, right? And then you'll get the read way, way faster. So you'll be able to make conclusions. So yeah, edge control, it's quite important for a piece like this. But yeah, overall, really good work. Really like it. A lot of stuff. And I'm sorry if the client wants you to use a homogeneous background, because that stuff kills paintings. Let me tell you, it kills paintings like no other. I like your solution here, by the way. It's clever with the brushwork. That's a good solution. Gradient's also a good solution, and it solves your issue with the edge down here. But that's after a certain point, there's not much you can do, right? Some people will genuinely require worse things in your paintings. It's happened to me for a couple of couple of commissions in the past, people have straight up said something that just doesn't make any sense, but you do it because you get money for it, so fuck it, right? But yeah, good painting, man. Really good stuff. Again, for more focus on the area of interest, again, these little details. Because remember, interest is dictated by so many little things. And one of those little things is little things, aka detail. So the more work you put into this area, the more you're going to look in that area as well. Not just the value, not just the edge, but even the amount that is worked. Like these little things like this. Like it takes you no amount of time, and you're not really adding any time to the clock, because you realize that the time that you spent over here is just being spent over here. And the net time is zero, it's zero sum, so it's perfectly fine to do it this way. Stuff like that gives you a stronger read. So yeah, a bunch of really small changes, but yeah, I think good ones. Yeah, I always like seeing your work. Very, very high quality stuff. And I'm sure the client was very pleased. No problem. Thank you for submitting. I like creating high level work as well, because I get to do things that I don't usually talk about. Because I will never talk about edge control in an early piece. You know how I learned about edge control? I was watching a crit from Carla Ortiz, and she was talking about it. High level. I think it's good. Alright. I got abs this piece. Hell yeah, abs. Good shit. So we can go into this, take a drink of water, get started. Okay, so there's one really important problem with this piece. It's on the rendering. It's a really, really big problem in this piece, and that's the only thing that's holding it back from being a really fucking good piece. There's no light in the piece. There's no lighting at all. It's all way too uniformly dark, and there's no standout lights anywhere in the piece. So there's the slight idea of lights, but there's no real light. And I want to ask you if that's intentional, because you're no stranger to painting. So I have to ask you if that's intentional. Again, Abs is a very high level painter. He's very good. Go check out his Instagram, and Eves as well. So it's worth asking, because I want to know what the idea is. Like, are you practicing low key, for example? That could be a good explanation if it's a low key painting. Because before I do anything, I need to ask. Yeah, but really good job on the folds. Very nice. Love this area in particular. Hard. You want to be low key? Okay, we can still keep it low key, but I would want that light. I want those lights to show a little bit more. So you given the piece to me, and you want to see what I would do with it. So I would still keep it low key, because I actually really like low key paintings. But you can't have the entire value space on the piece be occupied with top value being here. It's a little bit too on the nose here. It's a little bit too close. It's very possible you can have top value over here, but it's somewhat ruined by the fact that you have values that are this light all around it, which is kind of killing the effect a little bit more. So what we need to do is we need to make these a bit more strengthened, slightly more, these areas over here. And even more than that, if you want to keep everything low-key, you have to use your values a little bit better, in the sense that if this was indeed a low-key painting and you want to show this as still light in low-key, then what happens is you have to use values like this around your hands. Because again, you want to keep things relative, right? But you would use these kind of values, and again, it's like even that one change right there, even changes like this, for example, that's sufficient to kind of give you the notion of light. But when things are this kind of washed out, the effect of light completely vanishes, and that's something that you can't really afford to have on a piece, right? So you understand light really well, probably better than I do. So with these kind of values on the canvas, it's very hard for us to really see the fact that it is light, because it has to be light right there, right? It has to be light because it's enclosed within a hand. So if that's going to be the case, then we have to justify that somehow or the other, right? So it needs to be justified by value, but we don't see it, because the difference between an area in light and an area in shadow is a little bit it's too infinitesimal for it to be a realistic painting. Now it could very well be impressionistic, which is fine, but that's not my area of expertise, right? So I can't give you advice on that. But if it's supposed to be realistic, or done in the style of at least semi-realism, then we need to slightly up that. It's not all that much, but at least slightly up that idea of shadow at least. If I don't want to increase the value of the light, then up the contrast to shadow, and then we slowly make that change throughout the piece, and suddenly I get a better read right there. When I get a better idea of what needs to go there. I like that you lost this edge, by the way. I do respect it. Dog going fucking mental as well in the background. Try to restructure my eyes right there. So a bit of restructuring does help, right? So we see a little bit more of that light right now. Because again, it's a question of how the arrangement of values is, if it's indeed going to be low-key. So if it's going to be low-key, we still have to respect the idea of separation, so that's still maintained. So, I mean, that's at least what Loomis says, and I completely agree with him. So even though the entire piece is shifted, the contrast can't shift along with it. The contrast can't be compressed as much. So with idea of low-key painting, the notion is this, right? So if the painting had this much contrast in regular key, in low-key would have this much contrast, so the contrast is still maintained. We don't compress that. Because if we compress the contrast too much, then we lose the read, lose the light, which is the biggest problem with the painting, right? Because we completely lost the light because of how things have been compressed. So in order to fix it, we need to restructure things a little bit more. So that's why I said that the background, even though this seems like a really dark background in comparison to everything, like because the lightest light is right over there, it's killing the effect of this light because they're competing way too much. And that's why it's like a reason. So again, the same change we did for the face, we have to do over here as well to make sure that it actually reads as light. Because otherwise, it simply doesn't, right? It's just like it may as well be like a sticker on there. So to kind of fix that, again, same kind of idea. So I need to lower the overall effect of the background. Sorry about that, I hit my scroll wheel. I'm gonna lower this. It doesn't have to be that much, it's like you're almost on there. Yeah, I respect the idea of not going for a strong read. I think a lot of painters actually benefit a lot from that, and it makes your work stand out, by the way, a lot. Because everybody and their mother goes for high value contrast. So I do like the idea, but we just gotta slightly get the execution a bit better. Like I said, just slowly dimming the darkness. That's probably a much easier way of doing this. But just like a really, really bare bones way. I'm straight up painting just darker values in the background. And suddenly I get more light right there. And reuse values a little bit better as well. For example, a really easy way of kind of showing a bit of this effect of light is just that rim light a little bit here. Here and here maybe. Like I'm not quite sure exactly the structure of what you're going for, but somewhere or the other there's going to be a catch rim, which is going to help you show that a bit better, because if you can't show atmosphere around your light, you show effective light. So there are two ways of showing a light source in any piece. Right? So you show the effect of the light or you show atmosphere around the light source. So in that sense, it's actually an important decision to make, because you can't always do this. Like, I used to think that you could, but you can't. I used to think that if you had a light source anywhere in a piece, for example, you have something like this, like just a regular light source, right? I thought you could always do something like this. You could always do it like that. But really you can't. That actually doesn't make any sense in a lot of cases, because what this is that it's indicating that there's an atmospheric component to the background, a very high one, enough that particles are scattering the light right around your source. But very often is the case that this doesn't happen at all. It's very common that it's maybe just about this much, if any, right? Like if you look at a light in your room, for example, I'm looking at my incandescent bulb, like there's nothing around the bulb. Like there's the effective light around the bulb, but the bulb itself, it's not like creating this plume of light all around it, right? So it's a valid thing to think about when showing the light. So if you want to show the light but you can't plume it, then you have to show effective light. So you show little things like this, again keeping it in your same key, and stuff like that can really help you. So it brings it into, again, it keeps it low key, but again it shows you light a bit more. So just a careful arrangement of stuff is really what needs to be done. So the values don't need to be necessarily changed if you don't want to change them. What the hell is going on in the background? Okay, be right back. Just have to check out outside the window for a second. Because if my gate's open, I'm gonna have to end stream. Alright, we're good. It was in the neighbor's complex, because I was afraid a dog had jumped into my yard and was fighting with my fucking dogs there. But no, it was just in the else's house. Okay, so this is the idea for the fix, right? So basically it just values locally. But alternatively, you can just do something like this as well, just as easily. But this will kill the low-key idea. So this is where we came to. So it really brought that effect of the light a bit more. But we can just do it this way as well, as a suitable alternative. So we can just give it a crazy amount of light. That's saturation. We can give it a bunch of light, make everything show how it needs to, right? And if you want to see exactly what I'm doing, because I know you're not very used to digital tools, you can do it this way. Hello, how's it doing? How's it doing? How's it going, dude? How's it doing, go? So I'm using an adjustment curve here. So I made everything lighter. So basically this is what I did. So what this is doing basically is it's mapping the darkest value to a middle amount of lightness, and it's mapping the lightest amount to much lighter than it usually is. Right? This is platitude, this is much lighter. And I create a filter mask, basically. So a mask is the idea, it's like a manipulable layer which is just light and dark, basically. Right? It's just light and dark. So when I paint, for example, and I paint a light, I reveal what's on this layer, what's on this mask. And when I paint dark, I conceal what's on this mask. So if you see in Charlie give crits, he uses this almost exclusively to kind of change lighting on the piece. So again, if it's a lighter, if it's a light value, it reveals. If it's a dark value, it conceals. And if it's a mid value, well, I don't know how much you fucking know, man. Anyway, for anybody else that wants to know, there you go, information's out there. Get rid of everything really quickly. And now I can just show you light sources with a bit better amount of fidelity. Suddenly, that looks like a light source finally. Those look like light sources finally. This is the reverse way. As opposed to darkening things around, we just lighten things that are light, right? I'm doing this with the airbrush, by the way, because I want to slightly control where all this is going, but again, have kind of subtle transitions as well. That's fine with doing that. I would probably throw a secondary on here somewhere. Like, I would like there to be maybe a light down here, just to show a little bit more of a form. But it's not the worst thing in the world. We can still keep it like this. But I do like it when the characters look like two light sources, but this is also fine. Also gives the opportunity to do something like this, for example. Add more reflectives on the glass, for example. You can also throw in free saturation there as well. And the color contrast will help us look at the focal point. So right over here, for example, I can do that with this tool over here. Just up that. So I can throw in some free saturation in there if I wanted to. As well, now that I have a justified light source. Probably be closer to the bottom, but still, it still reads just fine. And of course, when I did the mask, I had to be a little bit careful there to conceal don't feel. I'll also conceal the hands right there to get the contrast I'm looking for. There you go. So really simple change. But it's like we turned the lights on, because again, the arrangement of the values in low-key is the problem with the piece. I have no issue with low-key itself, in fact I prefer it personally, but the way that the values were arranged is a big problem, which needs to be solved. So rearrangement is basically the way to go. You have to rearrange slightly. Also, there's no harm showing more saturation with the light source as well. Because currently, this is maybe a choice by you, but personally, when I have natural light sources, I kind of like to show a bit more saturation than I would artificial ones. So when you have a cigarette that's lit, it's perfectly fair to portray it, because again, you're the artist, as a desaturated source, but it's a free source of saturation that actually should be somewhat taken into consideration. The idea is that when you have the light like this, it could easily be much more redder than it actually looks like, right? For example, we could do it this way. Let me just go to my usual view here. So we could easily have this light source be something like a really strong orange, for example, like that. And I don't have to note it like that, I don't have to do anything with the light source itself, but the effect of the light source that comes out of it, that could be a free source of strong saturation, right? That makes so much sense. I spent a lot of time staring at it, I couldn't figure out what was wrong with the lighting. Yeah, I mean, that's just what it is, and since you have the strength of digital, it's easy to just check and see what's actually happening, because I have the same problem all the time, and just about everybody will, is that when you try to establish contrast, we always lowball it a little bit, and that's fine, because when you start the piece at the very beginning, the dark looks extremely dark because most of the piece is incomplete, so you don't have all this context. But the thing is, when you finish the piece and you still are surrounded by that same context that has rapidly changed and evolved into this completely different beast, suddenly what you thought was light is no longer light, and what you thought was dark was no longer dark. So the requirement of contrast in the piece will evolve as you keep painting. So it's really kind of important, especially if you don't have particular workflows that can avoid this. Like the workflow that I use oftentimes is that once I figure out my values on any piece that I do, like for example on this one, like once I figured out what's in light, what's in dark, whenever I had to make a decision when it comes to color or texture or whatever, the first thing that I do is I sample that area. I get the local light, and then I make a decision. So my workflow allows for me to just have the contrast throughout the piece. So this light was in my piece from minute maybe 15 to 20, and I maintained it throughout and didn't have to change it. But realize that cost me a lot of time, going here and then adjusting, as opposed to just adjusting and then fixing the light later on. But that's just the principle of workflow, right? Everybody has a different one. But realize that if your workflow does not allow for your contrast to be maintained, or if you don't have good contrast to begin with, then this is going to be a really good solution for your issues. Just simply, masking things out and then making a very harsh change. And once you're happy with this, I don't even suggest sticking with the mask. I think just straight painting it after that is a better idea. Because the problem with masking stuff is that so many things are lost in a mask because it just goes over. For example, there's no way this hair is overwhelmingly light. It doesn't make any sense. Like there's no way this hand doesn't have its divots in there. There's no way that this light in the roof is just plain. So masks tend to gloss over things, and they suffer from the same problems that color correcting value paintings does. It doesn't care about shape. So it's much better that once you figure out what you like from the mask, get rid of the mask entirely and straight paint it, or use the mask as a reference. The way that I personally get around it is that I use my mask really early on. So in the first like 20 minutes, 30 minutes of my painting, and then everything on top of that is just straight painted. So it doesn't look like it suffers from the same problem, but that's because when I mask things out, my painting is not even close to being halfway done, like a quarter of a painting. So artists like Astrid Lon, for example. Astrid Lon is a Blizzard commissioned artist, I guess. She's like 23 years old and she's better than all of us. She has a video on YouTube about the subject wherein she says, when I apply a gradient map, when I apply a level shift, I do it in the first like 10% or 5% of the piece, because there's so much to do and so much to adjust for once you make that change. Because it's very typical in beginner work, wherein if you make a mask change, when you make a overall large change in your piece, that the change looks super artificial because it doesn't obey how lighting works, right? Because light, the way that light interacts with shape, and if you don't obey the shape, it's gonna look artificial. So a bit of a note about why you shouldn't rely on masks too much, because this is a finished painting, and a good finished painting at that. So it's really important to realize that a change like this, it can't be fixed properly with just masks. So masks can give you an idea, but I encourage you to straight paint over it. Or straight paint instead of doing this, so use this as reference if you'd like. But yeah, that's the change. I don't know if you want the piece, but that's the problem that I immediately saw in the piece. It was just way too dark. Like I said, you can do it within your means and keep it low key, or you can make it high key, or not particularly high key, because honestly, what is the lightest part? What's the lightest part of the entire image over here? What's the lightest part? Pretty light. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty fucking light. It's no longer low key. It's like medium key at best. But yeah, if you want to make it low key, it's really up to arrangement. So that's how it goes. So you won't be able to get away with nearly as much in a low key painting, which means you're gonna have to sacrifice a bunch of detail in here to maintain your darks. Because right now, there's not just so. If you're ever wondering why the low key didn't work, again, I'll reiterate the point. It's that you're missing a separation. There's no separation whatsoever between your lights and your darks. Because even though this might be lighter, and that you do indeed have darkness, this is not the original, this is my painting over it. This is the original. So even though you have a light value distinctively, and you have dark values distinctively, there are far too many bridge values in between, all over the place. What's her name again? Oh, it's this. She has a great YouTube channel, by the way. I really like her. BitMonkey, how's it going, dude? Good to see you. So, like, this is the reason this didn't work in the key that you drew it in, is because like there's not enough separation, and not just that, but the separation itself is not done in a way that kind of reflects the light itself, because it has to be so much more stark than what you have. So if I have a dark value, for example, that dark needs to be here. Like, it needs to be here. Otherwise, it just doesn't look like a light. Because again, I need that separation for it to make any sense. And realize the fact that if the dark needs to be here, the amount of curve I can show on this arm, it reduces significantly. I can no longer show as much detail in the arm. The same thing applies for over here, for example. Like, I have to make a ton of sacrifices over here to really show that the light actually works. So that means I have to paint over a lot of this beautiful stuff, which I really don't want to, right? It seems like it's a crime. I have to bring so much of this dark back in to kind of really ensure that I can actually see where the light's coming from, because the second I have a value in the dark that's over here competing with the value in the light that's over here, that's a big problem because it's way too close. And if it's way too close, it sacrifices on clarity, and that's just not possible. You can't do that in a piece. It needs to be clear. So for it to be clear, the changes are pretty dramatic, right? So this entire area goes into dark, stuff like this, like really harsh changes needs to happen for it to be much clearer. So rather than that, I think the foam solution is better. So in order to get more separation, we push the lights. Simple as that. So we are suddenly able to maintain that same amount of fidelity, because remember that when it comes to lighting a piece in general, you have a certain range you can work in and a certain amount of things you can accomplish. But beyond that, like if your lighting doesn't allow for it, you just can't get away with the same things anymore. And you don't think about this oftentimes because everybody paints in the same key most of the time, like everybody, including myself. We paint in the same key, which means we can see something in the darkness, we can see a lot of the lights. But when you mess with key, these questions are really important because you can't show the same things with the same amount of fidelity anymore. I'll give you a really good example. Let me show you something really quickly. Thanks for the follow, by the way, Alien Bird. Appreciate that, dude. So let me show you. Some plein air stuff. We're doing crits right now. Well, welcome. I just finished painting a picture of some wolves, if you're curious. We did this one in 1 hour, which is a kind of neat little piece, and some other examples of my work over here. We've been painting a lot of wolves over the past couple of days. I painted these clouds this afternoon, and some examples of my work. It was supposed to be a slideshow somewhere, but it was eating up too much of my RAM. John, how's it going, dude? Good to see you. So I just want to show you something that's really important and things that people don't really think about oftentimes, but it's super, super valuable, especially if you're doing what you're doing right now, which is messing with the key. And that's the idea of compression. And we don't ever think about this, but it's so fucking important. The duck and dog drawing on the Instagram is the best thing ever. Thank you. It's actually from the painting from an Instagram account. Hopefully I linked it in the actual picture. It's a fantastic Instagram account. It's a little dachshund with a bunch of ducks and little chickens and all that stuff. It's pretty cool. Okay, so this is the idea, abs. So when you want to paint or mess with the key, this is what ultimately happens. And I'll show this to you in a different document maybe. And this is a slightly, it's not a beginner thing. Because a beginner would paint everything in the same key, and that's perfectly fun and I recommend it. But, so this is what happens. So this is a beautiful, beautiful painting. I believe this is Peggy Kroll, but I could be wrong. It looks like her work. But, so there's something that's really important to realize that's happening here that you wouldn't think to look at. And that's that she's blown out the lights. She blew the lights up. And this is something that everybody says don't ever do this in a painting. Don't ever blow your lights up like this. But why is it happening? It's because value space is a thing in all the paintings. Value spaces are really, really important to consider. So what's happening here is this. So the majority of our work, the sheer majority of every work you'll ever see in anybody's paintings is this. The value structure is always going to be something very close to this. It's a very common value structure, right? And you can see my palette here. And the reason it works is because here I have my lights, my darkest light, my separation, my darkest dark. Very common, right? What's happening over here is that the artist has correctly identified the fact that this painting needs to be about the dark, right? So I need to have a large amount of dark area to work with because I want to show the subtleties in the face and in the hair and the shadows underneath the table, all these different hues. I want to have a lot of room to work with. But what's really important, the key feature of this idea, is the fact that you don't have unlimited space to work with in every painting. Because if I was to say that I want to have this much area and still keep this as my light, it doesn't make any sense because suddenly my separation is gone, and separation is important, right? So before my lightest dark was over here, and my darkest light was over here. So again, lightest dark over here, darkest light over here, I have separation. But when I want to expand on the amount of information in the shadows, suddenly my lightest dark has to be over here, right? So I have a bunch of values to work with, a bunch of different values. But then my separation is killed, because suddenly it's this jump. So what happens? What does the artist do to solve this issue? The artist compresses the lights. It compresses it. Suddenly we have this much, this is the area of light over here. I have 1 and 2 values. So I have this much area in the dark, and I still have separation. That's a solution. So instead of ending up with a very standard key like this, the revised key of painting in the darks is this, right? It's like this, this, and then that value right there. And that's exactly what happens here in this painting. And a lot of these paintings that people do with high focus on shadows, this is exactly what happens there. What they do is they push that light so they can have this area to live in the darkness. A lot of room to have a bunch of intricacy in the darkness, and it's really, really important, really fundamental. So I hope that makes some amount of sense. So there's such a thing as value space. Just like there's color space, there is value space. So in your painting, what's happening is this, right? I mean, you have this, and you have this. You have a bunch of values in the low key, which is perfectly fine. And let's just say that this is your light value over here. But the thing is, the way that you arrange them is you had a bunch of values in between that were killing your separation. So you want to stick with your lights and have a bunch of information in your darks. So in your painting particularly, if you want to do it in low key, what you would do is you would say specifically, this one unreachable value is in my light. So something like this, for example, and then realize that every value other than that value has to be in dark. Why you need separation? That's because separation is what gives you the impression of light, right? Without separation, there is no light. Look at the crit that I just did over here. So one of my fixes for this crit over here was this. Because light is it's fundamental to whatever we do, right? It's fundamental to whatever we try to portray realistically. Because if there's no separation, there's no impression of light. Everything looks really, really flat. And it's a problem. It is the number one problem we try to solve as realistic painters. We want to include separation. Separation of light and dark is the cornerstone of realism, right? So when you see any sort of masterwork, it's really why does a piece look good? Like, why does a piece fundamentally look good? It's because it's a bunch of dark against a bunch of light. It's not a bunch of gray against a bunch of gray. Nobody likes that. Actually, a bunch of people like that, but it's not realism anymore. And realism is what we're talking about. Because realistically, there's no such thing as gray on gray on gray. It's not. I mean, it can happen, of course. You can have flatly lit things, but it's not appealing. It's not appealing anymore. If you're going realistic, realistic has all the values, right? Just asking. Well, yeah, sure, it has all the values, but does it have it in particular areas? Like, do you have all your values in the shadows compared to your lights? Well, no. You never have this kind of idea. Like, look at any photograph, let's say, right? So we look at this little photograph. Sure, there's a whole range of values over here, but in essence, what's actually happening over here? Do we have a mismatch? Like, do all the values in the light exist in the dark, and do all the values in the dark exist in the light? No, there's a natural separation which is created by the effect of light on surface. Right? So while we might have a billion different variations over here, ultimately the light will always behave in the way that we're portraying them in our paintings, because we're following what light does. So what does light do? The light is dark over here, the light is dark, will never be darker, will never be lighter than the darkest light over here. There's always a natural separation, which is what we try to really emphasize. We're trying to emphasize this in realism. And remember, when I say realism, I mean realism. I don't mean painting something photorealistic. That's different. The realism is not heavy detail focused. It's heavy value focused, heavy drawing focused. You go for photorealism? Never. No, I don't paint anything photorealistically. I respect it a lot, though. I have a lot of respect for photorealism in any work, but like, this is my work. This is stuff that I can do. I work really quickly, so my painting is under 2 or 3 hours, and I paint very dirtily. So dirty painting is a thing. It's a style of alla prima oil painting, which I have really incorporated into my own digital workflow, so that's how I like to work. So none of these are photorealistic in the slightest. Even my portraits, my detailed portraits, they're like, look at how rough and how like strong the shapes are. They're not photorealistic at all. I do value it though. I think it's an important tool. Yeah, that's to answer your question, by the way, John. So you think that in nature you'd have all the values. Yeah, but you don't have them all together everywhere. And that's really important to realize. You don't have everything everywhere. It's like saying you have enough food to feed everybody in India, but do you have the food in the right places? No. And the food's separate in every way. It's not equally distributed. And that's exactly how lighting works. So while I have a whole range of stuff, photorealistic is not equal to realistic. Yeah, it's derivative from it. Like, photorealism still has the same qualities as realism, but it's just a bunch of detail, a bunch of intricacy. Yeah, but realism is not photorealism. It's not the same idea. Like, a bunch of the corner concepts are the same, but the emphasis is a little bit different. How is perspective related to light and rendering? How is perspective related to light and rendering? It's an interesting question. I'm trying to find what you mean underneath that. Perspective is vital for drawing, right? You gotta draw things with proper perspective, and drawing is 2/3 painting. So if you don't draw something in proper perspective, it doesn't matter how you light and render it. Right? It's always gonna suck a little bit. It's gonna suck a lot if your perspective is horrible. It's a big deal, by the way. And the phrase "drawing is 2/3 painting," that comes from like the early 1600s. So they always knew this, and it's very true. Very, very true. It's a big true right there. So it was given to me by an artist called R.J. Palmer when I was 16 years old. He gave me a crit and he said, "Listen, you can keep polishing a piece of shit, but it's always going to be a piece of shit." The dude's really he's fucking savage, but he was absolutely right. Really, really correct statement right there. So I really worked on my drawing. That was a long time ago. I've always been an extremely slow drawer and painter. I would find that difficult, so that's admirable. Well, there's nothing wrong with being slow as long as it's deliberate, right? I think speed is just a function of expertise. So the better you understand things, the quicker you'll become. So that's inevitable then. So you're always going to get faster as long as you're, putting your best foot forward and being mindful. That's all you need to do. Because realize, and this is like one of the big realizations for me, and why I pursued this particular type of painting over like, just doing things like everybody else, I guess, with like proper lines and then proper painting and then multiple layers and the same brush. Like I do a lot of things differently, and the reason is because I was very envious. I was super envious of people that were able to arrive at a conclusion so much quicker than I was. Because ultimately, it's not like, and this is a big deal, right? It's not like a quicker painter paints any faster than we do physically. They don't move their brush any faster than we do. They don't pick colors any faster than we do. It's just they do it better than us, right? I think that's just a simple answer. Do it much more effectively than we do, right? And that's what I've always been chasing, man. I mean, I'll get there eventually. One day we'll get there. But I think it's fairly important to note that. It's that with the same amount of strokes, somebody that's a master painter will blow me and everybody else out of the water as somebody, that's not. I think that's the biggest deal of it. Like I've seen artists like Nathan Fox, for example. I've seen them paint live. Fox tells stories about the people that he used to work with in DreamWorks, and they're artists in DreamWorks at the time. These master painters from Europe that would be able to paint landscapes in like 15 to 20 minutes, and it would be better than his work in 3 hours. And Nathan Fox is a master painter. Like he's so fucking good. So for him to say that, and for there to be people out there like that, that really puts into perspective just how inefficient all of us are. So it's worth chasing. I think it's a worthy thing to chase. Also, when did this mark happen on this dog's nose? Did anybody see this mark? Like, has it been here all this time? That's terrible. But yeah, that's your crit abs. Hopefully you got something from that. Important stuff. What a little nose, doggy. Jesus Christ. Got fucked up. But yeah, it's efficient painting. That's why whenever people say, don't care about speed as a beginner, take your own time. I completely agree, take your own time. But if you're not arriving at a conclusion any faster, that's something that should ring some bells. It really should. Because you shouldn't be spending 4 or 5 hours getting good proportion on the painting. It doesn't make any sense. That means that you're not paying attention to something, you're not trying to improve on something. It's a genuine problem. Like, take your time for sure, but the time you take it's a metric that needs to be considered. The same thing with quality of work, right? Like all the time I say on the stream, I say, don't care about the quality of your work. What matters is the process. But what I always think in the back of my head is the fact that if you're constantly producing shitty work, that's also a problem. That means you're doing something wrong. Like I've been several times in the course of the last year and a half, I've been painting every single day. There have been several weeks where my quality has gone down significantly because I've been doing something that's not correct. And the only reason I snapped out of it is because I looked at my work and I said, okay, that's shitty. What am I doing? Like, it's worthwhile. Like, there are a bunch of things that people will generally say, oh, don't care about it. It's perfectly fine. Your work is beautiful. But ultimately, like, it's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve you well. Nice show, John. Is that Toby from The Office? Ah, it is. Cool. Decent likeness. Well, yeah, that's my spiel about that. But yeah. You all found it interesting. Thanks for submitting for the crits, by the way. Hopefully you guys got something useful out of that. This is a really big deal, by the way. Like, if any of you guys stick to art, like, far enough to get a professional career or whatever, I guarantee you halfway through the journey you'll learn exactly this. And hopefully I'll be able to tell you how important it was in my own, once I get hired, if I ever get hired. I suppose I do see an improvement there in myself now that you mention it, but good to be attentive about it. Yeah, it's always good to be vigilant, right? Always be aware of what you're doing. I think that's what really changed when I came back to artwork, is that I was doing things a lot more mindfully. And God bless the fact that I do things quickly, that I can afford to just keep my mind 100% focused, at least kinda, a little bit focused on my work, more than I would be if I was spending 20 hours on a piece. Eventually I'm gonna just lose interest. And then it's just gonna be autopilot painting. Nos, how's it going? Good to see you. Okay, who do we raid? I'm done for the day. I have to do some paintings off stream. So we're gonna send you guys over somebody else. See you, Nos. POI, how's it going, man? Good to see you. Yeah, I'm weary at the end of my stream. It's 3 hours though, it's not that long, but again, I haven't streamed in like a week and a half. And I'm really tired. It's been a long day of painting. But I will be back hopefully tomorrow morning, I think, if I get a good night's sleep. I would like to, because morning streams are usually a lot longer and I get a lot more done. But yeah, I'm glad I got the crits out of the way. And hey, YouTube channel right there if you want to follow that. Follow the Discord as well. All the references that I use for all of these paintings, they're all posted on the Discord, so if you want to just join in, get a crit from me or something like that, perfectly welcome to do so. Otherwise, let's go raid Azar. How about that? Holy shit, the painting that Maddie's doing right now? Holy crap, that is a good painting right there. I gave in to peer pressure and I got a Twitter. That's alright, getting a name out there. Deservedly. Let's raid Maddie. Actually no, Maddie's at like 193. I often forget how much she pulls. She pulls crazy numbers. Let's raid Azar. Go check out Maddie's work, by the way. Holy shit, that painting she's doing right now with the clouds, that's actually ridiculous. It's so good. Alright. Guys, thanks for staying with me through all of this. Really do appreciate everybody hanging out on the stream and doing things along with us. If you have any studies to post on the Discord. If you have any crits to post on the Discord as well, always welcome, so you can get a bit of a detailed breakdown. We did quite a few crits today. Got a bunch of them out of the way, but I think all of them went into a positive direction. Can you send me your adjustment on my piece? It's on the Discord already, Iris. It's in the crit section. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for hanging around for the painting, for the crits. I will see you hopefully tomorrow morning with some more painting, but until then, keep studying and keep your mind on the paintings. Don't listen to anybody when they say that your work is excellent. Your work is good, but it can always be better. I'll see you over at Azar's, so have a good rest of your day if I don't see you. Cheers.
That's the same amount of viewers as, I don't know, if like all of China was an art stream. But guys, welcome. My name is Mr. Animes. I'm an art streamer from Norway.
Awesome! This is gonna be sick!
Thank you so much for the follow. Yeah, I'm an art streamer from and this is what I do. My journey is about my stream is about my journey towards James, what were you working on? If you guys don't know Indian Abroad, please go check him out. Thanks for shouting him out. He's basically my source of everything that I need to know. And I love going to James to get free art critiques. A lot of fun. If you you guys want to see